also want to pray for the commissioners up here. We make decisions that are based on truth, honor, and what's right, not always what's political. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I know we have an item on the agenda, would be number 3, I believe, on the consent agenda. While we are talking about Richardson, I want to do some discussion about the future Richardson.
Okay.
Chairman, I'd also, at the end of the meeting, our program that we're helping seniors with on their houses and stuff, I want to do a discussion on something on that and maybe an action. But we'll talk about that at the end of the meeting.
We'll do that after David Krause, after 17, the memorandum of understanding, seniors assistance. Now, Mr. Williams, are you saying you want to talk, you want to pull it, or you?
No.
Oh.
I have some discussion about Richardson.
Okay.
Okay. Before the meeting's over with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna add that to the agenda.
Okay, I'm gonna put that along with the last thing with
Okay.
And
Rocky.
Mr. Chairman, I want to give you,
On the regular agenda, at the end of the regular agenda. He just wants to talk about some Richardson.
I want to give you an update on the broadband committee, putting a possible action item there. So can we add that?
Also, David, are we gonna pull number 3 or are we still gonna discuss number 3?
That would be on the consent agenda?
I like to pull it for discussion.
Well, so, Mr. Chairman, that's gonna be pulled for discussion, so my discussion about Richardson would be along with
that.
discussion with
Okay.
number
Right.
3.
We'll just do that after the seniors assistance and before the broadband, or you want to do broadband first? We'll just put them
do it
all
at the
together.
end.
On the consent agenda.
On the consent agenda. That's after item 17 under David Krause.
Mr. Chair, I do have one more or two more items. Commissioner Williams wanted to talk about the bird flu. And the other item I have is the church has approached us again about the possibility of the parking lot on the grassy lot and see if the board is still interested in that possibility.
Okay, so we got the bird flu parking lot, seniors assistance by Mr. Ford, Richardson, all added to the end of the agenda, and broadband added to the end of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Okay. I have a presentation of the board for proclamation for Government Finance Professionals Week. I'm going to read this, and I think the clerk has something to say about this. Proclamation number 2022 P-04, Government Finance Professionals Week, March 14th to 18th, 2022. Whereas the Florida Government Finance Officers Association is a professional association founded in 1937 and serves more than 3,300 professionals from state, county, and city governments, school districts, colleges, and universities, special districts, and private firms. And whereas the FGFOA is dedicated to being your professional resource by providing opportunities through education, networking, leadership, and information. And whereas this Government Finance Professionals Week, sponsored by the FGFOA and all its member governmental organizations, is a week-long series of activities aimed at recognizing government finance professionals and the vital services that they provide to our state and our community. And whereas during this week, government finance professionals throughout the state of Florida will be acknowledged for their hard work, dedication, and leadership. Now, therefore, we, the Board of County Commissioners of Columbia County, Florida, do hereby proclaim March 14th to 18th, 2022 as Government Finance Professionals Week in the Columbia County and extend our appreciation to all government finance professionals throughout the state and here in Columbia County for their hard work, dedication, and leadership. Dated this March 3rd, 2022, James Swisher, Clerk of Courts, and Robbie Hollingsworth, Chairman. And Mr. Swisher wants to speak on this, I think.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank you for considering this proclamation. Our government finance professionals locally are the unsung heroes behind all of us. We as elected officials oftentimes have great ideas, but I know that I can attest for my fellow constitutional officers in that oftentimes it's the government, the finance professionals that make these ideas become reality. And I appreciate all of them. On top of their number one priority, which is their number one fiduciary responsibility, which is to safeguard the taxpayers' dollars. So I'm honored to stand behind all of these local government finance professionals and recognize them for the vital services they provide to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swisher. Next, we have Clint Pittman.
We need to adopt it.
I make a motion.
Yeah, I got him. Sorry, Jay, come here.
I make a motion to
I make a
adopt,
motion, yeah.
I make a motion to adopt proclamation 2022 P-.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Uh,
All opposed? Motion passed. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm going to when they get all set.
Water.
That's 50 cents nowadays.
Just make sure y'all block me.
Thank y'all for all y'all do.
Thank y'all.
Thank y'all.
All right, Clint Pittman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I approached Mr. Kirby and Mr. Kraus to be on the agenda for some employee recognition. Wanted to go over, sometimes this is long overdue when we talk about county staff. And I appreciate everything that all county staff does. But my department probably touches every department throughout the entire county in one form or another. Sheriff Hunter, constitutional officers, we deal with these folks on a regular basis, whether it be a mapping issue, a permitting issue through Troy Cruz and his department, all the way down, fire department, Pam Davis at landfill, all these department heads throughout the entire county and their employees, we all work together in order to make the things happen that we have to do. This team of employees sitting right over here behind me, the ones I'm going to recognize here shortly, this handful of employees, we touch roughly 40 properties throughout the county. Whether it be just a playground, whether it be a boat ramp, dumping trash at a facility, whatever the case may be, we touch multiple properties all over the county, which allows us to deal with just about every department throughout the county. So I appreciate that, but I would like to thank all departments, for the work they do to help us make our job happen. Just so I don't hear from Kevin and Jay later on, what I'm about to hand out here is no budgetary impact. This was not paid for by the county. But I'd like to take an opportunity here. I've got employees. We have a recognition program through the county, which hopefully every September we'll start seeing more and more of this happen, where the employees are recognized for the years of service, for being county employees. And I can speak on behalf of my department. I'd like to thank this board and dedication that Mr. Kraus and Mr. Kirby put in to help these employees get their pay. And I hope we continue to work on that in the future to get these employees where they need to be so we can retain good employees along with the recognition. So I commend y'all on that and thank y'all for the hard work y'all did on that. The first thing I'll do for some employees that's been here less than 5 years or right at the 5-year mark, and again, some of these employees are right at within a month or so their anniversary date. So again, hopefully in September, we'll see some of these employees back up here to honor them for their 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, whatever that may be. But anybody that's here at the 5-year mark or under today, I'm going to issue them a certificate of appreciation. And I'm just going to read one of them so we don't do it for every employee. But it's an appreciation for your hard work and dedication to the Columbia County Landscape and Parks Department. It's got the county emblem on it. And this is what I'll present the employees with that's been here up to that 5-year mark. And then I'll read the plaque when we get to those folks. But again, thanks to all the other department heads and constitutional officers and everybody that we have to deal with to help make my department successful. We thank y'all. At this time, employees, if I call your name, if y'all come down and receive your certificate or your plaque, Mr. Kraus will take a quick picture, so don't run off. And then we'll get y'all back to work because I know you're excited about doing that. I'd like to start out this first employee as a seasonal employee. He comes in every year, hard worker, make sure that we can keep up with the grass mowing at the multiple facilities and everything that we have going on. He's stuck with me for 8 years now, but he's on a seasonal situation. Mr. Tyndall, if you'll please come forward.
Oh, did you get it, David?
All right, I've got a couple guys here. Everybody knows how hard it is to get employees, get applications, get people hired on. The workforce just isn't out there, but I've got some young guys here that's managed to get in their probation period, managed to put up with me and the work that I direct them to do. So I'd like to call a couple of these guys that's started with me here recently that stuck it out. Markway Watkins, if you'll come forward, please. Mr. Logan Dix, if you'll come forward, please. Are they standing there long enough, or they're all in a hurry to go back to work? You see that?
They ready to get back to work.
So yeah. Next employee, as I go down the line here, he was with us for a little while and left and decided to come back because he liked the job so much. But good mechanic, helps the department out a bunch. So Jason Floyd, if you'll come forward, please. This next employee actually started with me back in 2007 when we first started renovating and taking over the ball fields. Decided to take another avenue for a little while, but we've been fortunate enough to get him back, get the ball fields up and rolling and keeping the staff in line out there. So Todd Green, if you'll come forward, please. All right. John Sutton, you'll come forward. John does an outstanding job, loves the landscape part of the industry, and we appreciate everything you do. Thank you. Terry Bonnick, if you'll come forward, please. This next person has recently just took a major job change in our department. She's been with me almost 4 years, but she's got some big shoes to fill. She was recently hired as the new office manager. She's currently intern. But Deborah Admire, if you'll come forward, please. All right, this next employee has been with me 4 years now. handles all of my custodial stuff at every location throughout the county, whether it's a roadside park, all the way down to Rum Island in the south end. She makes a big loop in the county to help make sure that our restrooms and all stay clean. She does an outstanding job. She's been with me right at 4 years. So, Catherine Honeycutt, if you'll come forward, please. All right. Most of y'all know we also have the facility in Fort White. I've got guys stationed down there that have multiple duties all over the south end of the county. This next individual's been with me. He's almost at his anniversary date of 5 years. So hopefully in September, we'll see him back up here again, being honored for his 5 years of service. But Tommy Harrington, if you'll come forward, please. This next individual actually hit his mark. So hopefully again, in September, we'll see him back. But William Kitzman has been here. His anniversary date was a couple days ago. He just hit his 5-year mark, but he's also stationed in Fort White. And Billy, if you'll come forward, we appreciate your work. These next few people that I'm going to recognize here have stuck with me and put up with me for several years now. They were hired when we first started expanding the department, and I've been very fortunate to start this department. Originally, I was a one-man team that was joint city-county, which all changed as the county started to grow. We could look back that 22 years when it all started. This department is 10 times what it was then. But these employees have stuck with me for several years. The first one I'd like to recognize here is Eric Hollingsworth. He's been with me 7.5 years. Eric, you'll come forward, please. All right, this next individual has been with me several years also. He's just a few months shy of being here, his 10-year mark. I know all of y'all remember Tropical Storm Debbie, how flooded the county was and everything that was going on. This employee right here had only been with me about a week. And I showed up at work one morning and I saw this van sitting in the parking lot. Couldn't figure out who it was. Tropical Storm Debbie kept him from being able to get back home, and he was sleeping in his van so he could make sure he was at work the next morning. Now, if that's not dedication, I don't know what is, but he stuck with me. He's right at his 10-year mark. But Frank Piazza, if you'll come forward, please. Thank you, Frank. Okay, this next individual probably has put up with more from me than anybody else in the whole department, to the point where she asked me to leave the office on a regular basis. But this individual has announced her retirement, and actually March the 18th, which is just a few short days away, she will be retired. As I said earlier, Deborah's got big shoes to fill. Don't know that she'll fill them. I hope she don't fill them all the way, because that way I don't get the grief all the time. But anyway, but Jan Smithy's just a few months short of being with me 15 years, and she will be retired. So Jan, if you'll come forward. All right, this next individual, I saved him for last. Not that I saved the best for last, but I guess I saved the one that's put up with me the longest and actually stuck with me. He was just a little kid when I hired him. He's still a kid compared to me because I'm getting old. But this individual's been with me in a couple months. He'll be here 19 years with Columbia County. Been great. Learned the ropes from the bottom. Knows all aspects of the county and where we started and where we are today. Jonathan Mick, if you'll come forward, please. All right, again, I'd like to thank everybody. Again, these employees have done an outstanding job. I wanted to take a few minutes and recognize them for the work they've done, and hopefully we'll continue to move forward and grow our department. We do have a couple positions open, so if anybody needs a job, come see us. But I thank the board again for allowing me to do this, and I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Hey, Clint. I want to say something before you leave, Clint, but you know, when somebody walks in a bathroom, they don't realize how much work goes into that all around this county. And we really appreciate y'all. It's kind of an unsung hero thing when people are out there at the soccer fields and everything's perfect and all these parks are perfect. They don't even think about the fact that y'all are out there working every day to do it. And we really appreciate y'all a lot. Don't think that because you don't get recognition all the time that we don't appreciate you, because our parks and it's pristine, you know, fields, everything. So we really appreciate it.
And Clint, I'd like to take it one step farther. Myself and you were involved in the transition 26 years ago, tells how old we are. Y'all have done a heck of a job, as I've always said before. Had 2 compliments this weekend on the big tournament that y'all put on. There's just not enough attaboys out there, as you well know. This whole squad and the ones in the past done a heck of a job. And when you go around the state of Florida, we're continue to be bragged about our complex and our facilities. Columbia City, it's used an awful lot, but them bathrooms, and I got to commend her, they stay unbelievably clean. And I just appreciate it a lot.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Clint, not only for your department, but all other departments under the county umbrella, we started to fix the pay last year during the budget process. And my number one priority for this budget cycle would continue to fix the employees of Columbia County pay. We know that when we look back over the past and from where we came to where we are now, that it's something that we need to. We can no longer depend on benefits that the county offers to supplement what a worker bring home. So we're going to continue to fix that so we can keep employees and don't have such a turnover.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I can't say it any better than my other commissioners have already said it. I appreciate everything you do. And, you know, we have committed to continuing to fix the pay to the tune of about $2.5 million a year. And if I'm fortunate enough to still be sitting here next year, we'll continue to do that. And I appreciate everything y'all do.
And I just want to echo what everybody else has said here. You know, I drive by the Fort White ball fields about every time on my way home, back and forth every day. And I'm going to tell you, I'm just filled with pride every time I go by there to have that in our community. And y'all do a great job at all the parks and all. And like I say, y'all just make me look good down in Fort White and on that ball field down there. And the new field y'all just got done adding and all, it's great. So, and everybody, I just say for everybody in my community down there, we appreciate what you do.
And I want to say, Clint, too, that Miss Smithy's probably be back at work in about 2 days because she's going to go home and see Rhett Smithy every day. It won't be long. She'll be back.
You don't know about that.
Thank y'all very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, we have Zach Paul, quarterback club.
Morning, Chair. My name is Zach Falk. Here on behalf of the CHS Quarterback Club. I have with me this morning Coach Jackson. I know I sent a printout to Mr. Krause. I'm pretty sure he shared it with you all. We're here to talk about sponsorship for equipment for student athletes out there at the high school. But I want to turn it over to Coach Jackson for a second so he can kind of tell you what our intentions are with this equipment and what we're trying to accomplish, and then I'll finish it up at the end.
Thank you, Chairman, and all the board members for allowing us to be here and speak to you on behalf of CHS football. I'm an advocate for our youth, big proponent, obviously, of football. It gave me an opportunity to go into college. We're doing some great things here at Columbia High School with our football program, and we have some avenues or opportunities to really make football what I consider important in this county. Football is kind of the way of life for many years. And for the last few years, we've kind of taken a hit with the offset of COVID, the issues of concussion. A lot of kids are kind of pulling away. But the guys that I coach, demographics, this is the only opportunity some of these guys have a chance of going off to college. And so I'm asking that our board and other entities join in with us to helping fulfill these dreams or these hopes for these young men. And we want to bring some excitement, and we're talking about some new ideas with helmets, equipment, kind of get in line with a lot of what are some of the teams in South Georgia that many of us think that you know is kind of leading us in the realm of high school football. And so we're right at the cusp of doing that, and so we're asking that the board kind of consider helping us with some of those fundraising opportunities. And I'll be able to answer any question that you have. Our school district does a great job, but they're limited in what we are able to do. We just want to make football more than just a game, but an event that all of our kids want to come to on Friday night. And I believe that the direction our program is heading, we got young men that want to be a part of this, and we just want to provide that opportunity for them and make an exciting event that even not the ones just playing, but people coming to the game and filling those stadiums. That is my goal, and that's what I intend to do as the head coach at Columbia High School.
Thank you, Coach. Is there any discussion?
I thought Jack had something to add.
Okay. Well, I didn't know if y'all had any questions for Coach. But like Coach alluded to, there's a lot of excitement that we're doing out there at the high school. I don't know if you all had an opportunity to come out on Tuesday. We had Daktronics come out there and do a demonstration for a digital scoreboard. We are working with a sponsor. Hopefully we can secure that and land that sponsorship package to be able to secure that digital scoreboard. We're trying to get it in before that graduation, so you can see your loved ones. People have the opportunity to see their loved ones across the stage. If they're sitting up there at the top of the stands, they could just look at the screen and zoom right in. But we're not going to be able to make it by that time, but we can't. There is still time to put it in place by the time the season starts. And so we're trying to secure that deal within the next 2 to 3 weeks. I can't. I'm not at liberty to say who the sponsor is right now until we get it done, but I'm pretty sure based on the conversations I've had, even after the demonstration, we're going to be able to pull this off. And so again, there's a lot of excitement. We have a lot of kids motivated, a lot of kids trying to join the team. I think Coach Jackson had a great eighth grade group that's coming out that's been participating consistently every day doing his winter workouts.
Winter workouts. We have an average of 45 to 52 eighth graders coming up, along with 80 returning players that are working out. Then we have another 25 that are running track, and then another 20 that are lifting weights. So there's excitement, and our focus is try to keep those young people involved in athletics and not on the streets. And so the more we can provide that excitement to them, give them an opportunity, the less likely they're at the house in the streets doing things that we all don't want them to do. And also gives them hope. Give them hope to be the next, head coach or next player to go on to college and play college ball. And so that is our goal, and that's what we're trying to do with these young people.
So what I did is we wanted to come before you all. We did do this presentation a few weeks back with the city council, and they did go in an agreement to give us $20,000 toward the helmets and the uniforms. I know it's broken down over the next couple of years. So we wanted to come this morning and see if we can if you all would be willing to join them and help us sponsor the other half of the helmets and uniforms in the amount of $20,000.
Any discussion, Commissioner?
Go ahead.
Over the years, the commission have been very supportive of the school system, including football. We've from the tennis court that was built at Columbia High to the paving, the new street coming off of what I used to call the Red Barn Road. Several years ago, the county had $500,000, sort of kind of divvied up among the 5 county commissioners. I took my $100,000 and built the football field out there. So this board have always tried to support the school system in any way that we can, but we're in a unique situation. We get caught between a rock and a hard place because the next group would be the football team, the basketball team, the track team, the soccer team, and we only have so much money, and we don't have that $500,000 anymore. It's been long gone now, since speaking. So I'm sure this board will work to help in any way that we can, but I won't sit here and guarantee you $20,000. Let me finish. It's left up to David to go in the budget after we're working on budget have already been approved. And if this board, whatever this board approved, David has to find that money in the budget in order to present it to the athletic department. So I'm not saying we won't, I'm just saying that there's a step we have to go through. You guys are making that request. Now that we have that request, then we can evaluate that request, go to David, say, where do we have funds to do this with? If somebody else come from the school system and want money, do we tell them no, or how do we divvy up what we have to be able to do it with?
Go ahead, Mr. Ford.
Well, as Mr. Coach Jackson knows, as a private businessman, I've supported all high school sports in Fort White for many years. Give thousands of dollars to high school sports through my business and different stuff. But as a commissioner, I don't know that we should be giving taxpayer dollars to a private 501c3. Haven't supported that in the past. And I think probably Commissioner Williams is right. Where do you stop it if you start it? Next thing you know, you'll have the track basketball program, the baseball team up here. And there's no way we can give $20,000 to every sports team that comes up here wanting money, you know. I think this is probably more for businesses to support in the community, maybe Rotary clubs and stuff like that. And to some extent, I think you're probably giving the wrong message to the kids. Because when my kids were in school, they're graduated now, but I have grandkids in school, and they participate in fundraisers every year. They go out and work to have the opportunity to raise the money to play ball and stuff like that. And I think these kids need to be involved in the fundraising. I don't think they should just be, and I'm sure they are to some extent, but $20,000 just hand over for taxpayer money for a 501c3. I don't think that's where we need to get started doing that. So that's my position on it.
Mr. Chairman, I concur with Commissioner Ford's comments. The other issue I have is my district, Commissioner Ford's district, touch a significant important amount of kids that don't go to CHS, they go to Fort White. So if if we do this, we're opening up the doors, because the next agency coming is going to be the Fort White Quarterback Club. And if we sponsor one, we should sponsor the other. I would love to be able to do it. I just think that it seems like it's $20,000, but it won't be. It's going to open up the floodgates You know, and how do you tell them yes and tell the next guy no? I think we as a board, can support their fundraising efforts individually and help them that way and help them get to that goal. But to do it with tax dollars, it's just going to open up, it's going to set a bad precedence and open up the floodgates. So.
Could I?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I completely understand your concern. I will say this. I'm an advocate for these young people. And my deal, I coached at Fort White, so I know the difference between the two programs, and I understand that there are some going to come and ask for money. And you have that right to say yes, no, whatever. However, if we don't put back into these young people, all right, you're talking about football here. I have approximately 140 kids, all right. There's not another program in the county that's going to impact as many kids as we do, all right. Yes, we also do fundraisers. Right now, we're doing 3 fundraisers as we speak, where we're going out and asking every individual player to go out and do fundraisers. But we're just trying to make an excitement that these young people are going out and going to do some things and try to get Columbia County, Columbia High School football program similar to what we're seeing in Southern Georgia. All right, what they're doing in a lot of their programs. And so, yes, there may be a basketball or another group, but you're not talking about 120 players in their entire program. All right, Fort White, we had 40 players. All right. So when you're talking about apples and oranges, you kind of got to look at the numbers of what you're dealing with. I also feel that there's a number of guys that if we can get them out playing football, got my eyes on them. Got the coaches that are continually pushing them, giving them a chance to go off to college. They won't be on the street. And so that's my appeal to you. I realize it's taxpayers' dollars, but it's also taxpayers' dollars when they're doing some things that's causing us harm. And so that's the avenue that I'm looking at. And so I appreciate your time, at least considering it.
Well, in defense of Mr. Jackson, Mr. Polk, been right there where you at. When my wife and several friends, when we started the Richardson Middle School club, it was an uphill battle. And I know what you're up against. And I'll commit to you to the point that we are. I think I just seen it the other day on the, we're coming into budgetary planning time. And I'll have to agree as a county, a city, school board, what have you. This is something I think we need to address. How do you deal with these types of situations as a whole when it comes to budgetary times? Because I echo exactly what the 3 commissioners already said. We're, as Ron says, we're in a rock and a hard place. And I've sat in that audience and seen it, the floodgates open up when Mr. Williams was so gracious to, give that $100,000 of his dollars there. But I'll commit to you, I'm going to do everything I can to try to put a program together that touches any and all. And but what Mr. Jackson just said is a very, very good point. Being part of the Valdosta Booster Club at one time, being a resident of Florida, it's when our kids go off into these other areas, it's somewhat intimidating when you go to a Lowndes County and you see what Mr. Jackson's seen. And I remember when I played, it was intimidating to go to Rains High over there because it was just like you were going to almost a college operation. But I'll commit to you that I'm going to look at every avenue we can to reach out and touch any and all, definitely. But I commend you guys for what you do because it takes a big man to stand up there and do what you guys are doing. I really appreciate that.
And I will tell you, just in the last 2 months, we've had over 80 university and colleges come through Lake City, all the way from Stanford University, Notre Dame, Louisiana, obviously Florida State, and Miami. But when these coaches come in, we have some of the premier athletes in the country. And so when you come in and they kind of see some of the things that we're doing in our facility, our talent pool is just as good as some of those schools in South Georgia. Our facilities are not. And so that's where I want to like to take this program to the next level and be compatible to some of those other programs. And that's not maybe the task of the commissioner, but my job is to try to reach every entity to try to get us to that. And that's why I'm here. If you say no, I go back to the drawing board and keep trying. But that's what I want to take Columbia High School football, where this entire town, not necessarily shuts down, but like what it was back in 1988. All right, when every single person, it mattered to go to football games. All right, when you got all these kids who want to go out and play football. We got some that got other issues, but that's what I want to bring back to this program, and thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Paul.
Chair, I would like to add, I know we're asking for $20,000, but you don't have to pay it all at one time. I understand you're going through the budget. I'm just being honest, because the city council didn't pay it all at one time. They elected to do it maybe $5,000 over the next 4 years. And so I know $5,000, from a budgetary standpoint, is a whole lot easier to swing every year than $20,000 you're trying to pull that out at one time. So you can just want to throw that out there. So, if, like you say, when you go through your budget meetings, if you could somehow squeeze us $5,000 out, we'll be appreciative of that as well.
Go ahead, Mr. Williams.
Zach, that's something good to know. And we fund other agencies. It's different from an outside agency that we fund than the school system. Because if we fund that, that will go to the school system, and the school system would then write that money to you guys. That's the way around going through a quarterback club or doing it that way, in a sense of speaking. The bottom line is that at the end you get those dollars because they earmark to the football program at Columbia High School. I can assure you this, that during our budget process, we'll consider it on how we can do it. If it's based on a 4-year plan or 2-year plan or whatever, the bottom line is being able to assist. And as we sit here as commissioners, we look beyond the football program and other programs that I said to start with. But you can rest assured that this board understands what sports does for our youth. If it saves one kid, that's one kid that's saved from the $20,000 that we would invest in a kid. But it's just a process that we have to work through the process, and working through the process starts at budget time. Right. And we'll be starting that process within the next couple of months.
Okay.
Commissioner Williams brought up a good point there about giving to the school. What does the school commit to the football program at this time?
Well, the school commit to reconditioning all of our equipment that we get, maintaining the fields, transportation, and our program not just take care of the football team, but we also take care of the cheerleaders and the dance team, which is made up of female. So it's not just going strictly to the football players and all boys. We kind of help the transportation for our cheerleaders and our dance team as well. So you can give it to the quarterback club or the school. That doesn't matter to me. So that's not an issue. I understand logistics of how the funds need to be allocated. But if you want to, write a check to the school district, I'm sure our administration will accept that and earmark it to wherever we need to. But there's a number of things that our school district take care of. Equipment. I mean, equipment is a major deal when you're dealing with 120 players. Weight equipment, just trying to provide safety. I mean, we get 120 helmets reconditioned every year, all right, because of the conduction deal, and you got to take care of that.
So
Practice gear.
I could support maybe giving something to the school and let the school divvy it up between the sports programs, and that would be our commitment to sports. for both schools, both high schools, whatever. That's something we can discuss at budget time, but I think that's gonna probably need some discussion and some planning from that to us, how it works before we, because like I say, if you ever go down the road of supporting 501c3, that's a slippery slope to me that you're gonna get on that. It's gonna put us in some tough situations of saying yes and no, who would say yes to, basically picking winners and losers is what I'm getting at. And I don't want to be in that situation. And I don't think none of my other commissioners would like to be in that situation either. And when you start giving the 501c3s, you're going to open the doors to several of them coming up here wanting money in that.
But Jack, we're asking, we're like in our ask now, for David to add this funding item to our workshop, to support the athletic department at the high school through the high school, Columbia County High School system.
In Fort White High School.
Yeah.
And like I say, that's something we'll discuss.
We'll discuss it.
I'm not making a commitment that I'll agree to anything till I see it, but
Well, I
yes,
understand that.
I would be open for discussion for that.
That's good because to me, it didn't matter if you give it to the school or you give it to the 501c3, it's going to the same thing anyway. We're going to accomplish the same thing. So I'm fine with either way. If it's easier, if it's an easier path for you to go that way, at the end of the day, we trying to help the kids.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
We do appreciate what y'all do.
Okay.
And like I said, Coach Jackson can attest to it. In private, my private business and stuff, I have supported school sports through the years. I've been in business in Columbia County. And I appreciate everything y'all do for the kids and I try to help out where I can. But taxpayer money, you've got to kind of watch how you spend that in my, way I look at it.
Mr. Falk, we appreciate it, and we know y'all work hard to help the football team. I don't know who you have to call, but I'm sure some of these, the restroom up there ain't open. I don't know if there's a way to get that open for us. But if you could, I'm sure somebody might want to use it. Okay. Thank you, sir.
At the stadium?
No, right up here.
Oh,
For some reason, it's locked.
They got the door locked.
Yeah, they got the door locked going to the restroom, and I'm sure somebody in here might have to use it in the next 2 hours. Door's locked.
Everybody that have.
But I appreciate it, Mr. Paul.
all right.
Thank you very
All
much.
right now.
And thank you, Coach.
Thank you for your time.
One of my coaches is up here.
Just go down there and pull it down. You big enough.
We'll call him to get him to open it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
Thank you very much. Hugh Thomas, Swanee River Water Management District. Mr. Thomas.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning. And I would like to introduce that in the audience also is one of my board members from the Water Management District, Charles Keith, that's serving. And I'm here this morning because at one of your previous meetings, there was some questions relative to the Lance water system and some funding that the district had previously approved for some upgrades to be made to that system. And be happy to answer questions about that as best that I can. Having to go back in history some because that was before my time whenever that occurred. But what I would say is that in February of 2017, my governing board did approve $55,740. That was after discussions with the county and the city in looking at that utility system, the upgrades that needed to be performed so that the residents could continue to have a water supply there. Work was performed that year in between July and September of that year. About a little over $15,000 was expended. With that, it was invoiced to the district. $15,365 was paid to the city And the contract agreement was terminated in October of that year, of 2017. So it closed out with our fiscal year that year. I don't know what other questions y'all may have relative to that topic. Be happy to try to answer them.
So did I understand you say that the water management saved the city $55,000?
Yes, sir. Through an agreement with the staff met during the summer of 2017. Actually, I was hired as the director during that time frame. And I remember meeting with the county and the city. Wendell Johnson and Paul Dials were both present as well, and discussing what needed to be done to improve that system there.
I guess our question is, $55,000 allocated and we spent 15. Is there funds still there?
No, sir, there are not. They were closed out in fiscal year 2017.
City.
Similar to what Commissioner Williams was speaking at the previous item. You know, we do a budget year annually and do budget preparation, similar to the way that you all do. Ours starts almost immediately after September for the next year. So those funds are no longer available. No, sir, they're not dedicated to that. And the contract was closed out.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
Hugh, this was to bring the city water into the subdivision that had been separated from the other subdivision that's part of the utility, correct?
That is correct. No.
And the cost to do that was unknown at the time the allocations were made. It sounds
Right.
like the final cost was only 15,000 because the city does bulk water to that subdivision, and then the receiver handles it from that point into the subdivision. I think the initial discussions were whether or not the city was actually going to run the lines to the individual residences.
Exactly. Yeah. We kind of looked at it globally as to what it would be. And then it was decided not to encompass the second subdivision there.
So my question would be, would the city be willing to pay that money back to Lance Water with free water? I mean, if they're doing bulk water,
The city? So
did I understand you to say the city's got a bulk meter, they're feeding water to Lance Water?
They have a bulk meter at the front of the subdivision, and then the receiver picks that water up and sells it.
So Lance Water's
to
paying the
users.
city for water, right?
The receiver is, correct.
Yeah.
Right. So, but again, there's two different subdivisions that are served by the utility. On the end where the bulk water's coming in, the utility's responsible from the bulk meter to the individual households, making sure that water's clean and treated and everything like that. Then you've got the other subdivision that's fed off the well that originally belonged to the utility. And so the costs are being incurred across the utility for the reimbursement that our receivers made to us. What was it, $20,000?
18,000.
Yeah, just short of $20,000. So they're distinct issues. You had what Mr. Thomas is talking about was bringing that city water into the utility to remove the possibility of there being any division between the two subdivisions. The subdivisions don't touch each other. They cross private property between them, and the water lines that were connecting them were running across private property. So by bringing city water to the subdivision that was not directly connected to the well, allowed for those property owners to have continuous water, notwithstanding anything that might happen between the two subdivisions.
So just for clarity, the subdivision on the hill, I call it behind the plywood, behind Blue Link, that supplies all the homes on the top side, and then the well down towards my home supplies everything on the bottom end. Is that correct? So
That's how
no
I
water,
understand.
no lines are traveling through the hill property or any of the acquired properties. The two systems are totally 100% separate.
There may still be lines traveling on the hill property, but the subdivisions don't rely on those lines to stay up and running. The sources of water don't run across those properties anymore. I don't want to say there's no lines running on District Hills property, because there probably are. But in
So-
terms of keeping those households online with water, the city provides the bulk water to one subdivision and the well provides to the other.
Okay.
So any
It's my
lines
understanding
that
they were
were in
capped
the
off.
ground prior to Smithfield going on to city water were abandoned.
Well, the whole Lance Water issue is just another symptom of the bigger problem. It's a utility we didn't want, utility we had to take, and now it's a utility that continues to cost taxpayer money. So, it's just another reason why, we need to work. And I know the agreement's coming up later. We need to work and get this agreement on paper and get the whole Hill situation off our plates and solved.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, to Mr. Witt's or Commissioner Witt's point, I would entertain if the county so moves forward with the agreement and in working with the city, if it is decided upon to connect that second subdivision into the city water system, I would be happy to discuss with my board possibility of assisting and funding some of that work to be done.
And that would help go towards solving that whole issue, but.
It would eliminate the utility there, yes, sir.
But Commissioner Witt is right. I'm tired of hearing, I love Jeffrey to death, but I'm tired of hearing about Hill. We need to come up with a way that we finally bring this to a closure. I think there's a proposal that the Swanee River Water Management have presented to the board. The board need to act on it. Mr. Hill need to show good faith and in the process, and we get this behind us. The water system, the land, the dam, and all of it. Let's just get through with it.
Are we going to discuss the two together? Or are we going to do it in your comments?
We can discuss any issues with the utility now, and then we can dovetail it as part of my discussion of the interlocal. I think Mr. Thomas is going to stay and be available during the next discussion.
That's correct.
I think as far as the Lance Water goes, we had a question about funding in the last, because he needs more funds this year to make him whole. And he's answered the question. There is no funding source available at Swanee River Water Management, so there's really no more action to take on Lance Water tonight or this morning.
Correct. It's not on the agenda. The funding, the reimbursement request is still pending. And the receiver is he's our appointed receiver. So ultimately we'll owe that
We'll have
money.
to take that up.
But we'll take it up separately. Yes.
Okay.
Is there any more discussion on the Lance water system? And I know it'll come up in interlocal agreement most likely, but any more?
That's fine, but Mr. Foreman, are the ball on our end of the court with the process going forward to come to agreement on the whole process with the Hills?
That's on the agenda for number 5.
That
Yeah,
will
that's
be,
number
that
5.
will be what's discussed, Commissioner. And yes,
I
sir.
know where it is. I'm asking him a
Yeah.
question. So we can today discuss this and go where we need to go to try to resolve this whole issue. Can we do that today?
Yes.
Well, that's where I want to go.
Certainly. Yes, sir.
And then it'll be up to Mr. Hill to say, I agree or don't agree. Am I right?
That it's.
'Cause he got to have some say-so in this discussion.
The way it's structured, Commissioner, as we talked about last time, this agreement is only between the district and the county. And that's where that's where kind of the beauty of it is. Within that agreement, when the county and the district form that agreement, Mr. Hill is what's called an intended third-party beneficiary. And all he has to do are certain things, and he receives certain things.
Okay.
But he doesn't actually participate in the formation of the agreement. If he doesn't do those things, the things don't happen. But
Okay,
the
that's
agreement
fine.
still stands.
And we're going to discuss that in depth here in a minute when we get to number 5.
Okay. I don't have.
I just have one other question on Lance Water. What would it take to get the Lance Water back to Mr. Lance Hill that actually owned the utility?
So as a matter of law, there is an abandonment of the utility within the Department of Environmental Protection Enforcement action before Judge Williams. That happened many moons ago. There is a final judgment entered in that enforcement action where Mr. Jeffrey Hill, on behalf of Lance Water, signed saying, we're going to have nothing more to do with this utility. We're not going to bill anybody. We're not going to touch it. We're done. That's an abandonment, and it's abandonment as a matter of law. As long as that final judgment stands, we as the county under statute are bound to maintain and operate an abandoned utility within our jurisdictional limits. We have to do that through a receiver because we didn't have, maybe in a few years, we could have done it ourselves, but we don't have a utility department that's really capable of managing these private utilities. So we followed the statute and have the receiver appointed. To unring the bell, the first step in unringing the bell is getting in front of Judge Williams and explaining there was some sort of mistake or misunderstanding and that the utility is not in fact abandoned. Once it's not abandoned, the statute doesn't apply to us anymore. And I'll be more than happy to run down and get everything set aside. Can't happen as long as it's still legally abandoned.
Great.
So I would make a motion that we get that started.
Well,
We can't make that
You
motion.
can't make that.
It would have to be, it would be up to Mr. Hill or Lance Water to go back to the DEP enforcement proceeding. We're not parties to the DEP enforcement proceedings. We're just sort of collateral damage here, in terms of what happened in that action. So there's a process to have an order set aside, if there's a mistake, if there's all these sorts of bases that you can argue to a judge, didn't really realize what I was doing, didn't understand the consequences of what I was doing, didn't mean to agree to that. There's all kinds of things you could say and pray the judge sets it aside. I have no idea what the judge would do.
Right.
I mean, there are ways we can deal with the Lance Water issue in the future. The reason I haven't addressed the Lance Water issue as a symptom of this problem is first we got to fix the bigger problem. So, I have had discussions with Lance Hill on some ideas to remedy the Lance Water situation that if we get this agreement today, we'll probably come back and discuss some of those. But that's the reason I haven't worked on the Lance Water piece, because without fixing the big piece, it's just a symptom of the bigger problem.
Which way, I wasn't trying to step on your toes with this, but we just seen this, but we appreciate all you're doing towards this, and I agree. Let's deal with the bigger picture, and then we'll follow up with that.
I think we
Any
move
more
on.
discussion? All right, we have public hearings, Corbett all day, Guardian CRM Incorporated.
Good morning, Commissioners. Corbett Allday with Guardian Community Resource Management, your contract grants consultant out of Dade City, Florida, for the record. We are here tonight to conduct a first public hearing at a fair housing training. The first public hearing is for the Community Development Block Grant Program. It's a required public hearing, and it's an informational hearing about the block grant program and what can be done with it. And we are looking for public input, as it is a public hearing after the presentation. We also have a fair housing training, a short one, because we can get 10 points for having that. The Small City CDBG is funded by HUD to the state of Florida. The state of Florida has an application cycle, and then there's a competitive application process each year. The purpose of CDBG funds primarily is to benefit low and moderate income persons. Sometimes, on rare occasions, it can be used to eliminate slum or blight. And sometimes when there's a disaster declared, they use the funds for particular urgency for disaster recovery. This first public hearing, we talk about the categories of applications that you can have. There's a regular category application where there's 3 options: a commercial downtown grant, revitalization grant, a neighborhood type grant, which you just had and closed with paving and water mains, and then a housing rehab. You actually have a funded housing rehabilitation CDBG project that's getting started. And so you're not eligible for a regular category CDBG, but you are eligible for the Economic Development Program. You can have one of those every year as long as you're on track with all of your grants. CDBG funds must benefit low and moderate income persons through new job creation. So what we're looking for with the Economic Development Grant is a business partner to come in and create new jobs. Economic development is a maximum of 1.5 million. It does not compete with the regular CDBG again, so you can have the housing grant and economic development. This would be federal fiscal year 2021 money, which has not been spent yet. Mainly what we pay for with these funds is infrastructure for jobs. So water, sewer, rail, traffic, roads, gas, and fiber, any of those. Local government-owned buildings and market rent are a POS option, but the lease, you have to rent those buildings at a fair market value, and you have to charge enough rent to pay back program income. So it's not really a favorable situation. They do loans to businesses, but they're not really favorable terms to small businesses. Jobs required, you need 35 for, you need one new job position per $35,000 of grant, and at least 51% of all the jobs created must go to persons of LMI households. That's before they get the job. If they get the job and they're not LMI anymore, that's great. But their income before the job must be low and moderate income. And then these are jobs that require a diploma or equivalent and on-the-job training, not higher degree jobs. So that's the program. I'm now available for public comment and public questions. That's the process to be next, and then we bring it back to the commission for discussion, and then we can have staff give their ideas about what project that they think we should pursue in the second public hearing, which will be in 2 weeks.
Okay, I'm going to open a public hearing on this right now. Do we have any public comment? Seeing no public comment, I'm going to close the public hearing. Any discussion, Commissioner?
Yes, David, on the economic grant, as the gentleman spoke of, we currently have no application for that. No, is anybody knocking on our door for that?
We have several ongoing economic development grants from previous funding cycles.
Mm-hmm.
We have none in the current funding cycle. There are several projects that we've talked about which have job providers. So there are several that we can look at, yes.
Okay. The reason I say that is that, if there's, I would assume we'd need to set a time frame relevant to that, to where that.
Yeah.
As a-
If you speak about it, we can't hear you then.
Who, me?
Yeah.
I'm speaking right in.
That's
It's almost in my mouth. With the infrastructure needed in the very near future at the mega site, I want to give everybody an opportunity to definitely use the job side of it. But as we all know, with one company looking very, very positive, if you want to say, out there, we could, because as I said before, the road system we're going to have to put in there, that's going to be a lot of money. And so, okay.
And yes, one of the keys is if you do an economic development grant, there has to be a job provider.
Correct.
So there has to be a company that is committed and willing to sign a piece of paper and a contract that says we will provide the jobs.
When is our timeline for all these? When do we have to turn this in by for this funding cycle?
Well, once we decide on what to fund, we'll come back with a second public hearing where we'll say, this is what we'd like to fund. And then when you approve that, that would then get submitted to HUD, or actually to the state DEO offices, and for their consideration and evaluation. Because it's economic development, there's not like a deadline. The deadline is when you can get your stuff together.
So if we approve the grant for if we say we want to do an economic development grant, we don't have to have that person identified within these timelines?
I would say at this point, today's public hearing is to say you want to pursue an economic development grant. And you would be directing me to pursue an economic development grant. At the second public hearing, we would have to come back and say, this is the project and this is the specific activity we want done.
Correct. The board's Only obligation tonight is to make a motion to authorize staff to develop, evaluate and develop an economic development application and bring it back to the board at the second public hearing. So basically, they would look at how many jobs, the time frame of the business, and all of these kinds of things, and then bring you back the best application.
Mr. Williams?
And Commissioner Murphy's right. Obviously, if we have firms that have already committed, those are automatic job providers and make it easier to write a grant.
Mr. Chair, and what I like about these grants, you have to employ a percentage of people in low and moderate have low and moderate income. Now, if you recall that we had such a grant for Warner Trucking, and Warner used the phrase that, well, I don't want nobody telling me who to hire, so I'll pay the $1.5 million myself towards the company. So it's an opt-out for a company if they don't want to utilize the fund that generated through the community development block grant, but it's a win-win for low-income families.
And you currently have an economic development grant for part of the Ellisville sewer plant expansion tied to the truck maintenance facility at Truck Stops of America.
So, Mr. Chairman, hearing all this, I'll make a motion authorizing staff to prepare a CDBG application for an economic development project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. If you'll bear with me for about 5 minutes, I'll go through this fair housing training for 10 points. Fair housing is the law. It was passed under the Fair Housing Act, Civil Rights Act of 1968. It protects against discrimination when renting or buying a house. You also have a fair housing ordinance locally, and there are Florida statutes that protect against housing discrimination. It is illegal to discriminate based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, handicap, or familial status when renting, selling, or financing a home or property. Much like it's just like equal employment opportunity, you can't discriminate for those same protected categories. Sometimes it helps us to know what is exempt, to know what a law covers. Age is not protected. Marital status is not protected. Criminal history. These are the kind of things that can still be considered in evaluating you for a lease or buying a house or a mortgage. It also excludes owner-occupied buildings with up to 4 units. So a triplex, you live in 1 unit and rent the other 2 out, you're exempt. You have no more than 4 homes that you rent. A housing development operated by an organization or a club, if it's properly zoned for that, and then if it's properly zoned for 55 and older, you can discriminate. Examples of fair housing discrimination: advertising housing and preferred groups, of course, threatening and coercion, in using different terms or conditions for a mortgage loan for different people could be discrimination. Making assumptions about your ability to pay based on your race or national origin. Asking a person with a disability to prove he or she can live independently. You can't do that. Show apartments or homes in a certain neighborhood, that's steering. Ask you about disability unless you are requesting accommodation. So if you're requesting accommodation, they can talk to you about your disability and what it is you want, like roll bars in the bathroom. Ask you to provide more documentation than necessary. Refuse reasonable accommodation, like bathroom bars. If you feel like you've been discriminated against, there's the Fair Council on Housing, on Human Rights that you can contact online. And then also HUD has an online and a toll-free phone number. And with that, that's my presentation on fair housing. Any questions about fair housing?
Okay, I'm going to open public hearing on this? This is still a public hearing?
It's just
No,
a fair,
we're
it's just a
done.
fair housing
We're
training.
Oh, okay. We're done with that. Okay.
Yeah, we're done.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We appreciate your help on these grants.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve the consent agenda with item number three pulled.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
And Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt the consent agenda as approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda with the amended part of number 3. All approve?
Aye.
All against? All right, motion passes. Mr. Murphy, you pulled number 3, you have the floor.
Let me pull it up right here.
We're gonna do that at the end, then.
No, we're gonna do it now.
We'll do it now?
Yeah.
Do it now, might as well.
Okay.
It's kind of a 2 issues.
Okay, simply, my question, me and David's had discussion about that, this item this week. I've done some research on it. And, as it says in here, and I'd like to start off with, commending the Friends of the Library. My research of this project, it appears to me this is something that's kind of taken place nationwide, community-wide, statewide. It's a really neat program. And I'll say that I appreciate y'all keeping us. I've read through all the emails, all the backup data and everything here. And by picking the area at the Richardson Community Center, for a first-time project, I can't imagine you picking a better one. The installation of what's taking place over there, I think, was top-notch. I'll give Donnie and them, I commend them for what they've done. It's done a great deal. What simply caught my attention, being a steward of y'all's dollar, we were looking at this on the consent agenda as a reimbursement because as the agenda backup material simply says here, after construction began, plans at Richardson Community Center changed and the project was not completed. That's my question to whoever can answer that because I haven't been able to get that answer
David,
throughout the week.
Mr. Murphy, there's been a lot of hoopla about the displays that were placed at Richardson. And I think it got taken out of context. It's a great literacy program. And I'm aware that it is done all over the United States, either by the library itself or friends of the library. The only thing that was asked to be done was a kid go through the displays and they read the little information on all the displays. When they get to the end of it, they get a book about what they have read, sense of speaking. Being at Richardson, in the community that it is in, we as a community felt that there was a need to put more in just using this for an example. Molding Little Bo Peep, mold Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, more than Jackie and the Beanstalk. It gives the visitors and the youth in the community a chance to read about the history of Richardson. Read about Alphonse Lofton, which was the first Black state trooper in the state of Florida that was a graduate from Wilson. Read about a Glenn Presley that taught driver's ed and coached the basketball team that won a state championship at Richardson. And the list goes on and on and on about the accomplishments that Richardson graduated and the accomplishment that the graduates made. A perfect scenario for that kid that don't know anything about the history of Richardson to be able to read about the participants that was part of Richardson. That's all we ask. We are willing to provide all the information to the library. All they have to do is put it in their form in order to put it on display, along with their other program that they want to do. This is all was asked. And then somebody got all bent out of shape. We wasn't trying as a community, trying to take over what was being done. We wanted to enhance the availability of educating our visitors to Richardson and the youth in the community where Richardson is to read about the history of this historic site. That was in a nutshell. But somebody got bent out of shape. That we trying to take over a project, and we wasn't. We were trying to enhance the project to serve as a history walk also, instead of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs or Jack and the Beanstalk. That's all we was trying to do. Now, we had a telephone conference with the library director yesterday, and she wholeheartedly agreed that there's nothing wrong with that concept. But somebody got to digging in it and put it all out of whack, in a sense of speaking. So the Friends of the Library wanted their money back, and the board, Mr. Krause said, okay, I'll put it on the agenda. The director of the library said, pull it off the agenda. Under this scenario that we are talking about today, I agree with it 100%. But the Friends of the Library does not meet until later this month, and I will take this concept to them and see if they still fund the program. Did I leave out anything, Mr. Krause?
The only thing I would add is in the discussions that we had yesterday with the Richardson Community Center, with Pastor Mobley and the other people involved, is they have developed a way to maintain them and keep them up over time with a committee that would work with the library and the Friends of the Library on the content, as well as the maintenance of the stands.
Is there anyone here to speak for the Friends of the Library on what they would like to see done with these pedestals?
Good morning. I'm Katrina Evans, the library director. The Friends of the Library president could not be here this morning. She had an appointment out of town, so I can't speak for the Friends of the Library. But I do know that the Friends of the Library are aware of the current situation, which, as Commissioner Williams said, was that we were hoping to work together with the community to do both the story walk, which is the concept that the Friends of the Library had originally planned on, which, just to be clear, is not going to be Snow White and Jack and the Beanstalk. It's going to be contemporary children's books that reflect the diversity of the community and the world that we live in today. So really, cute and age-appropriate picture books that are very contemporary. Anyway, a combination between that and also sharing with the Richardson, the folks in the Richardson community, the opportunity to put together some displays on the history of the community that would also be, age-appropriate and sharing the history of the community as well. So it's just, I think at this point, it's just a matter of getting Commissioner Williams and Mr. Pauk and Mr. Mobley together with the Friends president, the Friends board, to just kind of work out the details of that situation.
And
Go ahead, Ms. Wee.
Clarification, ma'am, I did not say Snow White. I quote, I am using this as a illustration.
Right.
Not saying what is going
Sure.
on the board would be Snow White, Little Bo Peep, and
Right.
Jackie and the Beanstalk, unquote.
All right. Okay. Right.
Okay,
So
I just want to make sure you got that clear now.
the original
Okay.
book that we chose was one called I've Got Rhythm
Yes, ma'am.
is the name of the book. That
Well-
was the original choice.
Go ahead. You done this week?
I guess what I'm understanding is we need to just table this probably till everyone can meet and agree on what the illustration should be on these. And from what I'm understanding, the Friends of the Library are saying, we're okay with doing both. Is that my understanding?
Right. I think that, right. In concept, I think we just have to work out some details.
So in effect, sir, if the Friends of the Library wish to proceed, the whole budget amendment becomes moot because we would not need to repay the donation.
Right.
So
That's
that-
correct.
So that
So it would
speaks to
not come
the,
back to the board if they're in agreement with the situation. There's no
Right.
need to repay the donation.
Correct. If we can work out, an agreement that's something that's agreeable to everyone involved, then yes, it would not need to come back to the board.
what I would say is, when is your meeting?
The next Friends of the Library meeting is March 28th.
And you think that we can get this resolved at that meeting one way or the other?
Yeah, we will.
Okay, so I would just direct staff to let us know if they decide not to and we need to reimburse, or, so we really need to table it and, see what they decide at their meeting, because we really don't know what they're going to decide.
I'll make a motion that we
Mr.
table this issue until they have a chance to meet.
And I'll second it for discussion. But Mr. Chair, if I may, while Miss Katrina is still there at the podium, when Miss Katrina called me Saturday, and I'll go on the record, I support this literacy program, as well as I support the history of Richardson Community Center and all community centers throughout the county. That's not my question. My simple question was, as a steward of the taxpayers' dollars, David, why are we refunding this? What changed in order to bring this budget amendment here? That's all Tim Murphy was asking. I didn't get my panties in the wad or nothing like that. What Mr. Mobley did over there, you got that? Okay. What Mr. Mobley and his volunteers did over there this weekend, that was a great thing. Mr. Ferguson, who used to be what I thought was one of the best principals around for years, he was a mentor to I. So I personally think that people like Mr. Ferguson, that was a personal friend of mine to the day he passed, I think them kind of people should be commended, but that's not what my question is here. I think it's our duty as community centers and taxpayers to promote history as it was back in that day, and to make sure the current kids of this day are knowledgeable of that kind of stuff, because they can grow on that. My simple question was, David Krause, stop me if I'm wrong. What changed in order for us to have to reach somebody from the Friends of the Library or somebody from the library? Somebody requested a refund. That was my simple question. And then the politics and the backdoor stuff went to throwing all the jabs at Tim Murphy. And I'm fine. I'm a big boy. I can take all that. But my simple question has not been answered yet, and it will be answered. Who made the request to David Krause for refunding this money? That's a simple question.
So Katrina and I believe it was the president of the Friends of the Library and I met, and they were under the impression that the community center was not going in the direction where the story walk would continue. We sent an email out. We were given the impression the story walk would not continue. And the Friends of the Library said, well, if that's the case, they were interested in the refund because they would like to then do it at some other location. Because ultimately their goal is they would like to do it at several locations. But they were under the impression that the story walk would not be allowed to continue at Richardson.
Okay, and that, I just wanted that out in the air, because Tim Murphy ain't running around out there pushing this thing down different directions to set a divide. because that's never been the same. And with that being said right there, and I've learned a lot this week looking at this, talking to people like Mr. Zach Paulk there, Mr. Mobley and people like that. We as a board need to do a better job of protecting situations like this that get distorted and get all this mess talking about out here on these streets. Anytime an improvement, a community center desires to do an improvement to a community center, I think it's well within the bounds, more than within the bounds. Every single one of our community centers has got a good voluntary board. I can't name a bad board in the whole county. My point is a community group such as the library, and I'm not throwing daggers here, but I looked at this email trace that Mr. Kraus sent me, and there's a lot of, we are not doing a good job about what we're doing. We should give the respect to all these volunteers that put hundreds of hours of time into these community centers, like my friend Rance Galloway. I can't tell you how many hours he put into Winfield out there over the years, a pile of them, and he along with others. But my point is plainly stated: when a project as this or any other project takes place, take it to the community board, the community center board, then they bring it to the Board of County Commissioners, and we either agree with them or not. Because like Mr. Williams said down there, and I'm just going to pick on Winfield because Winfield come to us, Ron, what was it, several years ago on a project? They bucked up half of the money. They bucked up half of the money. But my simple question on all this hoopla, as Mr. Williams says, and he's correct, is hoopla. Is that simply who made the request for this? And you just told us and everybody in this public that the Friends of the Library, not Miss Katrina, because it's a separate, and I want to make that clear too. The Friends of the Library is a separate entity other than the library. And I commend them for what they do. They do a great, great job. And in the efforts that, in the discussions that's taken place in the last couple of days with Mr. Paul, Mr. Mobley and what have you, I commend them for what they do in that community center. It's the right thing to do. I'm just saying that I had a simple question that went south and all kind of other little mess got put in it. It was what it was. So I'm fine with tabling this, and I personally think that's something that the community center and Friends of the Library can work out whatever they want to do, but I'm good with it. It's a good project. It's a great project for the community.
Well, and to me, Mr. Chairman, that was my only question was the Friends of the Library funded a project at one of our community centers, and now they want a refund. Well, why didn't we just continue the project? Why was the project stopped? And now we got more information that the project maybe wasn't stopped. And if the community center and Friends of the Library can work together, and these things are going to be there permanently, and they both can use them, that's even better for everybody. So it sounds like we really don't have an issue here. Let's let them have their meeting, and this is solved.
Absolutely.
We have,
Issue came from somebody stirring and they know the hell they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
okay, we have a public comment for this, and we have a motion to second, so come on down, Mr. Looker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just a little confused on this subject. I believe the county has 6 or 7 community centers. Richardson, Westside, Footway, they're all over the place. And those boards control what goes on at the community centers. It seems that Richardson is the only community center where the board may not control what goes on at the community center. I know the county has a recreation department or a recreation director. I don't know how much the director directs as far as county recreation. But does the county have a policy? If each community center board decides what goes on at the community center, I don't even know why there's any issue if the board wanted to do that. I haven't seen all the emails. I'll get them from Mr. Kraus, I guess. I just saw what was in the packet with the Friends of the Library. But my question is this, and then I'll sit down, is who runs the Richardson Community Center? Is it the Richardson Board? Or is it the county and the Richardson Board and other people? And that's my question. I don't know the answer, and I don't think anybody does. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Williams.
And that was gonna lead to well, we'll wait till we get through with
Yeah.
the public comment, and then we'll go to the next part of Richardson.
Okay. I think we have one comment, Mr. Warren.
Chairman and Commissioner Sylvester Warren. Chairman, I know that there's supposed to be a decorum policy, and I know that decorum policy goes for the public, but I would hope you as the chairman would also use that decorum policy for any of the commissioners. But when I hear people that we consider to be heroes and part of our legacy in our community, like Mr. Ferguson, mentioned by Mr. Murphy, and he goes on to say them kind of people. And when he mentions Mr. Mobley and those type of individuals and those type of people, we understand we're not dumb. What are you insinuating? We understand what you're insinuating. That type of language, Commissioner, Chairman, should be cut off. And he should be somehow dealt with when you use that type of language. If we're in a community that we're trying to be more diverse and more inclusive, and we're trying to move forward and not deal with race issues, but heal race issues, Commissioner Murphy should not be using that type of language when he refers and mentions Black people.
I understand what you're saying, but please talk to us as a board. We don't want to, single out. I think what he was doing, and I can let Mr. Murphy talk to this, he was just pointing out people he knew in the community that were big supporters of Richardson and had affected his life. I don't think he meant it in a negative way, but I understand what you're saying, but please talk to us as a board because we're the ones that are going to decide all this.
I thought I was talking to you as a board. I apologize.
Well, no. When you talked about Mr. Murphy, but I understand your correlation, what you're saying. He was talking about people that had dealt with him over the years with Richardson. I don't think he meant any of that negative. And I see how sometimes you can take some things that are said, but please address us as a board. You know what I mean?
I don't understand.
And we'll all listen, I promise you, because I know you're passionate about it.
I'm not understanding how I'm not addressing you as a board. I'm asking you as the chairman to talk to Commissioner Murphy, right? You the chairman, so I thought I was discussing with you and as a board that type of language is offensive. Okay. And we walk in black skin every day, so we know what it means. Yeah. And there's
he's hearing you right now. I mean, we all are hearing what you're saying.
Right. And that's offensive. And any good person would apologize if you didn't mean anything by it. And if it's offensive to people like myself and other people, we know what people mean when you say those kind of people. He said I was his friend for a very long time, and those kind of people.
Okay.
What
Mr.
kind of
Warren,
people?
I listened to his comments, and
You're not.
it was clear to me his context when he said that. You're trying to make an issue out of something by taking his words out of context, and I don't think the chairman should allow you to do that.
I don't need that.
Well, I understand. It was my opportunity to speak. I'm telling you how I took it, and there's other people in the room that took it that way.
Well,
And
we
I'm-
appreciate it. We're
it's
sorry you
noted,
took it that way.
And it is
And I'm-
noted.
And I don't understand it's hard when people don't walk in black skin when they hear certain words, how it don't affect them the same way. That's all I'm saying, Commissioner.
I understand it, and I'm glad you voiced everything to us, and I understand. I just don't want to single out somebody.
No, sir, that
Talk
was
to
not
all
my
of us.
intent. I was just asking for people to be more sensitive that there's other people in the room besides whites.
Thank you, sir, very much.
Mr. Chair, before we take the vote, just for pure clarity, if I offended anybody by my statement, I apologize. But when I say they people, I'm talking about, I was referring to, and I didn't even think twice about it. I'm thinking about all the good praises that Mr. Zach Paulk's done, all the time and hours that Rich Galloway does for our community. Miss Orr, one of my dear friends from, her son and my kid, if I offended anybody, I apologize, but that was not the intent. I'm ready to take a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Now, Part B, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Ms. Williams.
I'm a person that's, if I think something, if I got a problem, if I got a concern, then I let that concern be made. And I know each one of us is set up by districts. But I realize that all of us fund the whole county, including district with district problems and district solutions. I have, the years that I've been a county commissioner, I have not had an issue but with one county commissioner. All the ones that I've served with. But I don't go in another man's district about what's going on in his district. I don't do that. I let him or her run their district. But when it comes to Fort White with Mr. Ford here, he know 100% that I'm with him with what's going on at Fort White. Mr. Witt at Ellisville knows that anything I can do for the Ellisville exit interchange, that I'm with him 100% because it's good for this county. And so forth and so on. But how he run his community center, how he do this or how he do that, I don't get involved in it. He's elected to do that, not me. Now, Mr. Murphy, I'm asking this to you. Now, I understand you haven't said it to me, but you said it to David. Did you want to separate Richardson, move the athletic department from the gym? And I disagree with that. We are in a situation at Richardson where there is a unique situation. You have the athletic director housed at Richardson Complex. Richardson Complex is also a community center. You won't find that anywhere else in Columbia County. You probably won't find that anywhere else in any county that I know of. I don't understand how insane. Now you might tell me, well, I didn't say that. Well, that might be good. But I don't see how you have an athletic department, an athletic director, and staff at Richardson, and it's open from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock at night. The Richardson Recreation Department does not run the athletic department at Richardson. It is ran by the athletic department. Mr. Ford, we was out there Thursday at a public meeting. What, 150 people, 200 people out there, 4 o'clock in the afternoon? And all of them don't look like me. It's a recreation area for Columbia County as a whole. A lot of people go to Richardson because it has the opportunity to provide the sort of recreation that people are looking for. They have basketball, pickleball, cornhole, you name it, they does it. So if I'm accusing you of wanting to do something that I think you're trying to do and you don't, then I apologize. But if you want to do that, I'm gonna fight you like hell.
And I don't blame you.
And I don't back up no further than I'm not.
Me neither.
But I will not let you destroy Richardson and what we got going out there?
Never made that attempt. Never made that attempt. And as you've said many, many times before, Mr. Ron Williams, one of my mentors, who's taught me a lot about this job and a lot about all the things me and you've been involved in over the years. For total clarity, and where BS is BS, and where the truth is the truth. In a discussion with our county manager, David Krause, I go in there, David, how's things going? Boom, boom, boom. We lead to one thing. I ask him my question. We do this. You know, one of my most common statements to Mr. David Krause, our county manager, is what you got going today. Simply that. Well, that particular day when it all started filtering into the community that Tim Murphy is out to kill Richardson, let me take that back. Recreation, that's BS, okay? And as far as the Richardson, the Columbia County Recreation Department, I think my record totally proves I am 100% supportive of that. I've been in this recreation gig for over 30 years. Mr. Glenn Hunter recruited me years ago to come and get on the bandwagon and help him, and we went down the road, and that's where we are today. But as I asked David Krause there, he says, I'm headed over to Richardson Community Center to meet with a director and some people. We got problems over there, and I'm going to have to make some changes. That's exact words out of your county manager's mouth. And I said, well, David, I said, you know, there is issues over there, and I've heard different opinions, and I've got opinions about it. But whatever you as a manager decides you've got to do, now or in the future, I will support you 100%. That's what was said to our county manager sitting right there. Now, what he relayed to you, Ron, or anybody else in the community, I can't help that because I got emails sitting right here, backs it up that, and I'm just going to jump real quick to the issue we just talked about this Friends of the Library. In my interpretation, and you can get all the email trains you want to from Mr. David Krause that was sent from Katrina here. You know, it came to me early on, and I'm not going to beat that horse, that maybe our athletic director was the one that gave the full authority to do this project over there. That's hogwash. That's hogwash. It came, and one of our county manager's points is we cannot determine separation of where recreation and community center goes. We got to decide whether or not we're going to run both or we're going to run the community center. That's quotes from Mr. David Krause. He can stop me anytime if I'm sitting there telling a lie. But my whole point to that is simply this. In the email chain, it plainly states why our county manager is on the clock. Whenever this project come forth from the Friends of the Library, he reached out to Mario. And Mario reached out to Mr. Mobley and whoever else, wherever that all took place. So the burden doesn't always lay with, you know, our recreation director. You know, he simply answered the email where, in my opinion, that first email should have went to the president or whoever the proper representatives are from the Richardson Community Center. But to answer your question, Ron, you heard it out of the horse's mouth, and I'll debate David Krause and anybody else that wants to, but that's how that little rumor, hogwash, BS got started right there. Now, if David Krause decides he wants to move Mr. Mario and whoever else over to the other office as it was talked about in the offices over the last several months, that's his decision. I can't move Mario, Clint, Kevin, anybody. They work for David Krause. This 5-person board is up here. We get our stuff from David. The hogwash and all the BS is whenever we get in behind the scenes and start trying to work with the other directors of different departments. That's not our job. I'm here to set policy and procedure, and I have backed every single thing that has come forth for the Richardson Community Center and the Richardson, and the Columbia County Recreation Department. We're fixing to have a discussion here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to back it 100%. It's about time that we've gotten some recreation this coming summer in the Fort White area. So I'll take them words that I just stated to everybody in this room, and I hope you put it in the paper because I'm ready for it. I back that 100%, but I stand by what I just said. But these, you heard it out of the horse's mouth, how that got started. So take it where they need to. And when I say they, anybody in this room that feels like they need to take that to another step, feel free to.
Mr. Witt.
Mr. Chairman, it's good we're having this discussion because recreation in the county is going to change significantly in the next few years with the 500-acre site that we're developing. And I think this board has shown through our actions that we are committed to Richardson. I'm committed to keeping Richardson as a historic community center and as a recreational program. I want the city to deed Richardson to the county because I would have much less reservation putting county tax dollars into a county facility than putting county tax dollars into a facility we don't own. So I think that needs to happen. I don't think anybody on this board is not committed to maintaining Richardson as both a historic community center and a recreation site. But recreation is going to grow, and it's going to grow in your district. Yep. It's going to grow a mile away from Richardson Community Center. And as things move forward, you may see things at Richardson now move to a brand new facility that's still in the community that can be accessed by the community. So I don't think this board is going to say, well, we're going to close down Richardson. You're not going to be able to go in there from, the hours are going to be closed, the programs are going to be cut. But as things evolve in recreation, if the county manager decides that Mr. Mario, as a recreation director, needs to move to a new location, that's his prerogative. I'm not going to get involved in that. I will get involved if it changes the operation of Richardson and it changes the hours it's open and the program's there. So, nothing said this thing's going to evolve because we are investing millions and millions of dollars in recreation in the future, and it's in District 1. So I think these little comments that get heard or conversations that get had, they just get blown up out of proportion. And it's much like the Friends of the Library project. There was never an issue there. We shouldn't even talk about that tonight. That could have been worked out behind the scenes
back in October
and pulled off the agenda.
And Commissioner Witt, I'm so pleased to hear you say and make a commitment to Richardson. And we realize that the 500 acres that's on Baltanaris, just off of Long Street, is going to be a great asset to the community. And who knows, it has to be, if the athletic director and his staff have to be relocated, there's a commitment from this board to replace workers at Richardson to operate.
Right.
Don't walk away from it because you moved the administration somewhere else. You put staff there under the recreation director to run that program.
Absolutely.
And that's a great idea.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's good, and that's what I want to see happen.
I just want to say one thing. I think a lot of the controversy, and this is just my opinion, from what I'm hearing, and I hear a lot of conversation back and forth about Richardson stuff. I think at some point, the Richardson Community Center board has got to be totally separate from the county athletic department. Because I think that's where a lot of the controversy
No,
comes
it's
in.
separate now, Mr.
Well, from what I understand, there's some of the people that's on the athletic board on the community center board also. Is that correct?
No.
Well, like I say,
It's an independent board.
Like I say, I don't get involved in stuff up there. But if that's one of the problems, maybe that would help solve some of this controversy. I don't know.
The athletic director over Richardson itself, they have their own board. They have their chairman and all that run their board. Just like you do it.
They overlap. That's what I'm
The
saying.
only reason they overlap because they're in the same building.
No, I'm talking about this personnel on the
No.
Okay.
Mr. Williams, I know you had moved something to the bottom at the end.
That-
We have
this is it.
discussed that now?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't need that later, so I guess we need to move on. Is everybody okay with that?
Absolutely.
I guess we got to talk to Joe Foreman now.
Joe,
Yes, sir.
one thing, so Mr. Witt, have made the comment, and it's the right comment to make. And I want the people in the audience to know that we are in the process, Joel, you're in the process with the city attorney to work out language that would give Richardson to the county once the grant that the city have applied for is either funded or not funded. Will you elaborate on that for me?
Yes,
For
sir,
them?
that's correct. The city has committed to give Richardson to the county in recognition of the fact that the county, for all intents and purposes, has operated Richardson for some time. The only thing we're waiting on is there was an outstanding grant application that made reference to the city's ownership of the Richardson property, and in the interest of hoping they could get that grant, we were waiting. But everything on our side, Commissioners, ready to go. The minute we find out the city does not need to retain ownership, we already have the title company ready to have the deeds executed and recorded.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you, Joel.
Pastor Baker. Is okay, if he wants, he can come speak on, it if he wants to fill out it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
real quickly, the meeting that Mr. Murphy was referring to was a meeting with Mr. Polk, myself, and Mario Kopic, and it was just about making sure that we knew who was going to be responsible for what at the community center, to make sure there was clear lines of responsibility of who does what. I've had conversations with most of the commissioners, if not all the commissioners, about future direction for recreation. We've talked individually, never as a group. Obviously, it will come up at some point in a group meeting about, in the future, where do we want to see recreation go? We know that it's changing. We've talked about models such as they do in Suwannee County. We talked about models as what we currently have and what makes sense for Columbia County. So we've had these conversations with each of the commissioners over time. And I think that's where some of this is coming from.
go ahead, Pastor.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for this moment. And I don't want to usurp the authority of our current president. When Richardson, the concept of Richardson was organized in the conversation in 2007, our board was incorporated. Our bylaws were written, adopted August the 4th, 2008. And I want to make sure that we understand our role as a community center board. As Commissioner Williams has already stated, we are different than any other community center. We have the Richardson Community Center, community. We have the Richardson Community Center Athletics Department. Now, I want to read to you what our purpose was then and now, because we have our board. We have no authority at Richardson because we only operate in an advisory function. That was approved when Mr. Dale Williams was county manager. Many of the commissioners here were not a part of that original understanding. And to this day, we have not overstepped our boundaries for any issue. And let me share something before I give my final issue here. When the board was brought in place and the county and the city went into agreement that the county would take over Richardson, I think it was a 20 or whatever year limit, we were given the opportunity to rename that facility, whatever the board choice was. We chose we chose to keep the name Richardson on that facility and to name our board after that facility. Last Saturday, that location reached a milestone because now it is an historic facility. And so the issues that we've been discussing with the kiosks and things of that nature, our board was not involved to the degree of making those decisions. And so I want to make sure that we are not discussing things that draws our board into a discussion that we had no input in. But for the record today, I want it to be known that this was our role then, and this is our role now. The purpose of the organization is to be the advisory voice of the county recreation director and the county manager on matters of concern at these locations. And these were in this document because at the time, we also felt, based on what we were told, that we had the oversight of Annie Maddox North. We no longer have that oversight to my knowledge, okay? This responsibility also includes the oversight of all programs recommended by the council, which shall be for the betterment of life for the people in this community. The oversight includes the mentoring, tutoring, training, partnership, recreation, and athletic program as given to us by the recreation director and the community. Those of us who go back to that moment, we had a community-wide meeting. And in that meeting, the community gave us a list of things, brainstorming, and we prioritized them. And we are continuing, even to this day, trying to address those issues that the community gave to us. And so for anyone who thinks that the Richardson Community Center Board has any authority, let me say today, we do not. Amen. We help to fund and to staff programs at Richardson Community Center that the county does not get involved in as it relates to funding. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I think we've done a tremendous job in this community assisting the recreational manager, assisting the county manager, and assisting this county. Because as Commissioner Williams said earlier, Richardson is not just for that neighborhood. Richardson is for Columbia County.
Correct.
And we've tried to do our due diligence to do that. Now, if there are entities or if there are persons who feel that we no longer need to have that, I got enough to do, Pastor.
Pastor, I appreciate
but
what
I
you.
want to make sure that if there are any questions about Richardson, that we can answer them now as it relates to the board, because our board functions solely and only as an advisory body.
I think you've cleared it up real well.
Appreciate that.
Pastor, I appreciate that because I've been here for 6 years and I've never been told that by management or not. But you set the air clear and I appreciate again.
But can I tell you what would happen? What would help us in the long run? And I may not be around, but can I tell you what would help us in the long run?
Yes, sir.
If that community and if that recreation center see your faces more. Because if they see your faces, they know that they have your support.
Mm-hmm.
And it should not just be when we're at a moment like this. Because if I have to go to Fort White to support, I will. If I have to go to every commissioner's district, I will. Because our job is to help move forward in this county recreation to the best of our ability and the other things that comes on our lives.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to take a bathroom break real quick. Oh, go ahead, Zach. Go ahead.
Okay, so therefore, like Pastor Baker was alluding to, so therefore, on the Friends of the Family situation, when it was brought to our attention, we did act on it immediately to try to go ahead and put it to rest. So I did meet with Mr. Krause. I did meet with Commissioner Williams, Ms. Evans. We did do a conference call, and Mr. Mobley, and we did put it to rest because at the end of the day, if we gave a refund, those kiosks still remain. And so therefore, it was a win-win situation. We did find a way to work together to be able to achieve all the objectives that we laid out on the table. And we addressed all those concerns. And from my understanding, it was, when we got done off that conference call, we were supposed to, I guess it was supposed to be stricken from the agenda. And then, we was gonna meet with, Friends of the Library Board, in which we still plan to do that, but I don't see why we can't work together. I already have a committee, I already have members on the board that's already willing to participate and form the committee, be a part of that committee. We're gonna reach out to some of our community partners or whoever else wanna be a part of that committee. There's nothing wrong. We can all partner up. We can still make this a win-win situation. And that's what I thought the plan was.
Thank you, Ms. Paul.
Thank you,
And-
appreciate
and what I
that.
would add is, usually if you'll compromise a little bit, everybody can get along. It takes a little compromise. And I'm sure you have. I'm just saying. We just need some to compromise, give and take a little bit.
We're gonna take a break. I promised somebody we'd take a break real quick.
Mr. Chairman, just before you take a break, I want to make it real clear to you commissioners. And that is the County Recreation Department is at the Richardson Community Center. Mr. Copper is the County Recreation Director. I'm telling you that the board sometimes knows nothing about that part of what Mr. Copper's responsibility is. And that Friends of the Library did not even come before the advisory board. That was Mr. Copper's involvement with the Friends of the Library that we had no involvement. So there is a distinct dividing line between county director's operation, which he has a staff, and what we do as an advisory board for the community Richardson Center. And that's what Pastor Baker was trying to make very clear.
Thank you.
But I
very
like
much.
it simple.
Thank you,
All
sir.
And
right.
that is the exact reason that Mario, Mr. Falk, and I met to discuss, to clarify.
Okay, we're gonna take a break. We'll be back in 5 minutes. It's
There it
working,
goes.
it's working.
Thanks,
Working
Scott.
now.
All right. Mr. Chair, I have several items, all in the vein of road closures and subdivision vacations. The first is resolution number 2022 R-07 on a petition of Cindy Trammell for closure of portions of Southwest Pleasant Terrace and Southwest Central Terrace. This is to set a hearing on those questions. For the board's information, I know I've discussed it with Commissioner Ford. These are actually one roadway that dead end just short of each other because the road is underwater so frequently. So you're talking about the unimproved end of Southwest Pleasant Terrace and the unimproved end of Southwest Central Terrace. These roads have never been opened and never been accessible. They just show up on the plat. We're asking for the hearing to be set in accordance with Resolution 2022 R-07.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
The next resolution, 2022 R-08, is for a similar abandonment. This is a portion of Southeast Shady Way that's never been opened as part of the plat of the town of Lulu. Petition by Megan Croft. This is in Commissioner Witt's district. We're requesting setting the hearing in accordance with the resolution.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
And thank you. And resolution 2022 R-09 is a request to set hearing to vacate a portion of Southeast Red Cason Drive. This road actually is the unimproved other part of the intersection with Shady there in the town of Lulu. Brandon Parrish is the petitioner. This is in Commissioner Witt's district.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
The next is petition for partial vacation of a subdivision, Timaquan Crossing. This is a subdivision that was never really sold according to its plat, and people who did buy the land subsequently ended up with lots that sort of overlapped the old subdivision lines. This is on petition of Linda Johns. For information, this is kind of across the street from Christ Central over there on Dial. She's requesting the petition be granted for the partial vacation subdivision, recommended to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The fifth item on my list today is one that I think is going to result in substantial amounts of conversation. It is a proposed interlocal agreement that's been negotiated between staff for the Swanee River Water Management District as well as staff for the county. The agreement is a little bit unusual in its nature. I've attached my most recent version as a posting to the agenda a little more than a week ago. I have subsequently received a revision from the Water Management District that these changes would be subject to their board's approval. However, the dam parcel, which is called for, and that's dam as in to impound water. I'm not saying anything about the quality of the parcel. The dam parcel is a little bit larger in the Water Management District's last proposal. That allows you to have a little bit of parkland adjoining the dam so that people can go there and enjoy it. And then the financial contribution from the district to reimburse the county for the county's costs has increased from about $88,000 to $150,000. I do want to be clear, those are still subject to approval of the Water Management District. However, that is their latest and best offer, and Mr. Thomas wanted me to make sure you were aware of it. I do want to go through briefly what the interlocal agreement actually calls for and accomplishes. I attempted to give you a short memo with the agenda packet. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to receive it. I'm going to speak about it in very general terms, and if you have any specific questions, please let me know. Essentially, you have a large tract of land that was formerly the Hill Farm that was acquired by the Water Management District through what we're all familiar with as being, a decade and a half or more of continuing litigation. The dam in question is really what spurred that litigation. It's a structure. It's an earthen structure that impounds water on what used to be a pond and is no longer. That impoundment no longer exists. The idea here is for the pond property as well as the impoundment itself to be conveyed to the county with the county's agreement that we would then go forward and permit the structure to restore it to its pre-litigation condition, which is approximately a 13-foot earthen dam with overflow structures that's classified as what's called a high-risk dam, okay? So the county would be taking on the expenses of getting that properly permitted through DEP, as well as the Water Management District, and then we would have the continuing maintenance obligation for that. It is our understanding through our meetings with district staff and their experts that there is an annual cost associated with doing seepage studies on a high-risk dam because you have to make sure it doesn't fail. And because it's an earthen dam, over time, we all know how it works, the water is continually trying to make its way through that dam. It's prone to failure, so it has to be inspected annually. So that's an annual cost you'd have, in addition to adding the park onto your roll of available county parks. You would, if you fully constructed the 13-foot earthen dam, be able to fully restore the pond that previously existed, which when you look at satellite photography, it's really easy to tell where that used to be, right? So your neighboring properties are going to get restored. That's sort of the threshold consideration. A lot of our labor in restoring the dam, everything that we can basically do in-house, we anticipate providing in kind. The district, in terms of their reimbursement, will mostly relate to permitting fees, engineering fees, costs that, things we can't do for ourselves that we'd have to pay for. We would pay for them up front, and the district will reimburse us in accordance with the interlocal agreement, which sets out a very specific set of parameters, how we submit expenses and how they get paid. They just set a cap at 150. So sort of like with the other funding, they're allocating 150. If we don't spend 150, they don't give it to us. So we have to spend it to get it. Okay. There is also remaining land, right? When we talk about all the property out there, I'm speaking about it as if everybody's familiar, and I assume everybody's familiar with the land we're talking about. The remaining land, so not the dam parcel, not the impoundment parcel, the remaining land for a period of of 5 years from the date that the dam is restored, essentially. If Mr. Hill, his wife, his son, and Lance Water sign releases that are in keeping with what's been included in the interlocal agreement, release their claims in about 15 different lawsuits. And it's a general release, says we're done, we're not suing on these anymore. At that time, the district would release the remainder of the real property to the county. And then it would fall to this board to decide what to do with that property. What the district's basically saying is we'll hold the property for another 5 years without selling it to any third parties. And if all these lawsuits are resolved or released, dismissed, whatever the case may be, at that time, we'll release the property to the county. The county can do whatever they need to do. So when we talk about, and we've talked about it a couple of different times here, the Hill family is an intended third-party beneficiary of the agreement you're making. Although it's not essential to the agreement itself, the agreement can work without it happening. You're adding it on as a conditional provision. If this thing happens, then, oh, by the way, we'll do this too. But if that thing never happens, that part of the agreement just goes away after 5 years. Okay, so the county is neither worse for wear, nor is the district, but it creates this opportunity for a 5-year window for that. If at any time during that 5-year window, those documents are executed and those lawsuits go away, the property gets released to the county, and then the Board of County Commissioners can determine how best or whether to return the property to the Hill family.
Okay. Joel, at that time, if that happens, what would be our avenue of being able to give that property back to Mr. Hill? Because I remember at a meeting we had a few years back, there was some question of how that we could make that happen.
It's a little bit difficult because the easiest way to return the property to the Hill family would be to have open litigation that would allow for some sort of a negotiation. That'd be the easiest way to do it in my mind. The problem is before we get the title to the property, we're going to have releases of all the litigation. So then what do we have left? There might be threats of future litigation or something like that. Commissioner, I mean, if we have an opportunity to cross that bridge, I'm confident we could get across it, particularly with the sentiment of this board. I don't know what the sentiment of the board will be in 4 or 5 years. And, we can't bind that board. But this is the best avenue that's been developed through negotiation to make that decision this board's to make. Because right now it's not.
Joel, so I'm glad to hear you say there is an avenue to cross that. Once we get there, we can do that. So if everything works itself out and we have a meeting and you have recommended a way that we can give the Hills their property back, and we get people to say, well, y'all can't give it. How do we get around the naysayers? The don't do it. It's county property. Why are you gonna give away until selling it? How do we get around that? I want to make sure that we got every angle covered down the path we trying to go.
Yes, sir. We can discuss this. I would maybe like to formulate a way for you to adopt a resolution finding that returning the property to the Hill family in concert with making this interlocal agreement is in furtherance of a public purpose, because it's your understanding that that's a way to induce the formation of the agreement, right? So we're trying to negotiate for and consummate an agreement. It is benefiting the county in that we're acquiring a park. We're also taking on a lot of responsibility for the dam. I mean, the whole thing that started the whole thing, right, is going to belong to the county after this is over with. So we are taking that on. But I think if I'm reading my board correctly, which I think I am, if this possibility of returning the Hill property to the family is not part of the deal, then the board doesn't have a deal. Am I reading the consensus of the board correctly? You haven't voted to that effect, but I've talked to all of you, in different consultations. So if we adopt a resolution that says, look, the reason we're approving the interlocal is because we intend, if this goes forward, to do that, then that would be your justification for taking the board action.
Okay.
But again, Commissioner, is that vulnerable to attack? Is that vulnerable to somebody saying, well, that's not a legitimate public purpose? Of course it is. But I do think it's incumbent on the board as the elected officials to adopt one, right? To say, well, this is why we think it's serving a public purpose. And really the way the law works, as long as you can articulate one, you have a lot of deference in court.
Joel, the county is named in several of these lawsuits. Could there not be, if Mr. Hill does exhaust his legal options and decide I'm done, could there not be a settlement with us that says, and that could fix it, that says, as part of the settlement, if you have the opportunity, you'll give me my land back. There's your bridge to do that.
It's another way to do it. And as I think Commissioner Witt's kind of honing in on what my thought process was before, is like, if it becomes clear that we're going to get there, we can sort it out. But if you want to try to do something now, Commissioner Williams, then I would recommend when you formally adopt, we do so by resolution, and that resolution include a provision that says, by the way, we're doing this because it's our intent that the property will go to the Hill family. And that's a material consideration for us in serving this public purpose.
Let's talk about the interlocal a little bit with the water management.
Yes, sir.
At the last meeting, we was talking about this here. I know Mr. Hughes wasn't here.
Yeah, and Mr. Thomas has remained specifically to answer your question. So
yeah. So, but with the water management, I guess what I'm getting at, we were told that we could ask for more than what's in this agreement if we wanted to. Or I was just saying, if there's any money left from the $150,000, could that go to help constructing the dam? And in the years to come, the seepage study that we're talking about, is that something, I mean, this is the water management district, and then when we're talking about water management, is that something they would be willing to help with in the future as far as?
My understanding from the meetings is that the seepage studies are something we have to do to satisfy EPA and DEP, not the district.
But understand that it's my understanding of this too, Counselor, is signing this agreement today, we want to restore, we want the Hill family made as whole as they can be made whole. We want a path to that. We also want to restore the dam to the most feasible way to restore it. So if by signing this agreement today, we're not locked into the 15-foot dam structure. If it comes back that it's going to be cumbersome to the county to do that, we can do a lesser option, correct?
Correct. We can't convey this property. It's incumbent upon us to obtain the permitting, but we would ultimately decide the threshold of that permitting. I think what the district heard through negotiation was that the county's interest was in restoring that pond. And we did have the conversation. Well, would a 6-foot dam do it? No, sir. That's not going to get you the right elevation. You're going to need to go to 13 feet to get all the way back up, which makes sense. You know, water finds its own level.
But what I'm saying is a fail-safe to the board is, you know, we don't quite know what all these financial costs are going to be.
Yeah.
But we also aren't committed to incurring them at this point. All we're committed to doing is keeping the land for a public purpose. Now, it's my intention to restore the dam and have the pond back like it was and have a nice park there. But if we get into the weeds and the seepage study is an unfeasible amount for the county to maintain every year, this board doesn't have to do that. We can maintain that property in a lesser state.
We do, Commissioner, just to be clear, we do have to go down the road of permitting.
Yes.
So we'll be on the clock. You know, once this is approved, I think we have 60 days to initiate the permitting process.
It's 30 days for conveying the property and 60 days on the permitting process.
Right. So we will, but again, I think that's good that we would be on the clock because we do need to be motivated toward bringing that pond back. But Commissioner Witt, to your point, and I know you're trying to inform the board as much as I am, if it becomes so cumbersome that we can't do it anymore, as long as we don't convey it to anyone else, we have to keep it. We could make the decision as a board, we're going to have to come down off this 13 foot. We can't maintain it at 13 foot anymore. But then we're obligated to go through the permitting process and we would be the permittee. So the district has carved it out in such a way that, yes, you're going to control that decision ultimately, even all the way back to and including, you know, we're going to go back to what the district's doing right now, which is sort of just letting it go. But whatever we do has to be permitted. If we're going to retain water there, whatever we're going to do, we'll be obligated to make sure we keep it permitted.
But if we don't go forth with a pond, it won't kill the deal, correct?
It will not kill the deal.
Okay.
After the deal's been consummated and the land's been transferred, if you decide, now you have to go through the permit process,
Correct.
but if you decide through that process, you know, we're going to permit something lesser than 13 feet, you can do that.
Gotcha.
They're giving you the 150,000 though. The reason they went from 88 to 150 is because we expressed that we were interested in going to the 13, but that's why it's also reimbursement based. So if you don't end up spending the 150, they're not giving you the 150. So they protected themselves in that regard. Am I speaking wrong? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got it right.
If I may, Mr. Chair, there's a couple of items that I want for transparency and clarity on there. You know, the actions associated with this interlocal agreement begin to take effect upon signing the interlocal agreement. Relative to the construction of the impoundment area, what we're not delegating to the county what they have to build there. The $150,000 figure is what the district is looking at putting into what the engineers are defining as a low hazard impoundment, which is basically allowing the creek to flow through that area, providing some protection relative to a 100-year storm event coming in, and within what the district has determined is a reasonable cost for that to maintain that type of liability associated with that structure. And that's where that dollar figure came in associated. We currently have the engineering associated already. The amount of money that we have spent on engineering to point is such that we have the engineering necessary to take it to the permitting for that type of structure. But it's up to the county what they want to put in there.
Not to cut you off, Hugh, but the engineering you have in place, did I just understand you to say is for a low hazard?
It is for a low hazard impoundment. Yes, sir.
Which entails just the creek traveling through.
Basically, it comes down to where the creek, and Commissioner, I'm not an engineer, but the way that it's been presented to me is it would provide protection in the event there'd be an impoundment there. It'll be what's called a low hazard. It'll be a smaller impoundment area, such that it would provide protection, flooding protection downstream in the event that we got a 100-year storm event that came through. It would impound that water, and then it would make its way through the conveyance structure that would be there. It would meter in drier periods. It would be a basic stream coming through is what it would be. So it would provide some level of protection from flooding. If you wanted to go to the ponded structure, it's more like your council has spoken to, with a higher berm, and a structure in place to retain water at some level that is designated by the county on there to maintain a pond in there.
And Hugh, that's totally clear, and that's what I picked up on. I just don't want anybody, and I'm definitely not talking to the board here. I just community-wide, I don't want anybody to think that just when the county acquires this, all of a sudden we're going to have another hill pond that I grew up in, because that's millions of dollars and a bunch of engineering down the road. That, you know, I want to. I just that's and I'm just throwing $1 million out there. But my whole point is that that's a lot of money later on. That would get us back to what I grew up swimming in. You know.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, to add, I want to make sure that I state this on behalf of my board, though, and I appreciate your counsel making this offer has not been to my governing board yet. I know Mr. Charles is here. He's been instrumental in getting to the point where it's at today. But I still need to take this to my board and have them agree to it and vote on it with that, in fact. And the board has not, just for clarity, the board has not expressed interest. In particular, it's item number 12, which has to do with the conveyance of the parcel associated with the dam impoundment itself. But with that conveyance and the remainder of the property, you know, the board has never stipulated what the options are to the county with what they get through this agreement on there as to what they do with that property.
Right. It's just conveyed to the county.
Right.
And then what happens from that point forward is up to this board.
It's solely to the county to do with what they choose.
So what are we expecting to do today? I mean, what is our goal today?
So if you approve this agreement today, you're saying they're gonna give us the dam impoundment and the land around that for some type of public use. You're not necessarily committing to a 15-foot dam and impoundment. I think we need to get there, and I think we can get there because USDA did it before. And it was Hill Pond for years. I don't see it being millions of dollars. Maybe I'm wrong, but you will have that parcel of land for some type of public use, whether it's a stream running through or a pond. And on the backside, it stops the district from selling the rest of the Hill Farm. And that Hill Farm will come to the county one day. So in my mind, it puts it's like we in the future can settle with the Hill family as the county.
But if I understand it, that's based on your board approving it, right?
That's correct, sir, with the agreement. And what I do want to add as well is upon execution of this agreement within 30 days, I believe it is, 30 to 60 days, but I believe it's 30 days. There's 3 parcels that are actually associated with the entire piece of property. There's a triangular sliver to the north of the impoundment area. It's a little over half an acre. That piece, the acreage property identified with the impoundment and the recreational part, intended recreational part or anticipated that your council mentioned. And then also the parcel associated with the water utility. Those 3 pieces would be conveyed to the county so that the county could immediately take ownership in some form to be able to begin work on that property with what they want to do with it. The remaining acreage would be held by the district until the impoundment area is permitted and there are as-built completion drawings with that. So once the structure is built. But again, my board has not approved this.
Go ahead, Ms. Wade.
Mr. Chair, well, Ms. Wade, you feel confident it's your district and you want to give us a motion to enter into an interlocal agreement with Swanee Water Management?
Yeah, and just to Mr. Thomas's comment that his board hasn't approved this yet. In conversations with Mr. Keith, we felt like to send the message we're serious about settling this, that it needed to come to our board first before. But I do know in hearing their conversations in their board and then from talking to Mr. Keith, they are ready to get this off their plate. So, and the $150,000 number is the number they already had budgeted. It actually increases what's in agreement. this is our best chance to solve this thing.
Give us a motion.
Mr.
You have
Wood,
a
if I
motion?
may, Mr. Wood, if I may, the other property owners surrounding what me and you know is a pond, in going into this agreement, Joel, does that prevent them other landowners from suing the county to a degree that we want this restored back to its original state? Do we stand the risk of litigation? Because I just want everybody to understand, what I call the Buck Hill, Jeffrey Hill property. There's other people that own property that touch this pond.
I have been at a few water management meetings where those property owners were present, and they all want the pond restored.
I think Commissioner Murphy's question is, by owning this land, do we then open ourselves up to be sued because the pond isn't there? Is that your question?
Exactly, because
Okay.
both of the other property owners expressed to me, as Mr. Witt just said, I just want to see the pond back to where it was.
Right.
And as I bought it with pond front property.
Right.
But my simple question is, we go into this agreement and I'm not going to say his name, but is this gentleman going to be able to come back? Okay, well, county, you had the opportunity to do this. Once we determine, and I'm just throwing a number here, these are not bona fide numbers, but we come to a decision 3 years from now that it's going to cost us $11 million to bring that pond back to a point. Well, of course, the county ain't going to be able to do that with $80 million worth of asphalt roads falling apart. So my whole point is are we going to make his case to where that you had an opportunity to do it? Or are we going to get sued?
I don't believe so, because whether or not to reconstruct the earthen dam under these circumstances is a policy decision of this board. You did not remove the dam. You didn't remove the water, right? You're making a policy decision about whether or not it's feasible for the taxpayers of Columbia County to restore it. It'd be a policy decision.
We didn't
I don't
create
think it
the
would be
problem.
disturbed by a court.
Yeah, we didn't create it, so.
Yeah. So, I mean, could you be sued for it? I tell you guys all the time, you can be sued for just about anything. Are you likely to lose that lawsuit? My opinion would be no.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the agreement and submit it to the district for their approval.
Second.
If before you vote, Mr. Witt, would you amend your motion? Because the one attached to the agenda packet does not include the revisions that Mr.
Okay.
Thomas provided, as
I
revised
will
by
amend,
district staff.
I'll amend my motion to adopt the agreement with the amendments Mr. Thomas added and present it to the district.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank y'all for your time today.
Very much.
Thank you. I'll just say that I will take this to the board and I'll do my best. And staff got together and we revised a couple of things to try to make it even better for the county. And this is what we were going to spend. So, now I just have to convince my board. Yeah. And I don't want you to understand, my board has no ill about this. They want the Columbia County to prosper from this, in a park and they've been down this road many times with putting this to bed. And we appreciate your participation in this. And I think this is probably one of the better resolutions that we've had over the years. But there's been many, many times that the current board have tried to make amends with Mr. Hill. We didn't have any success. I'm glad you're getting involved and maybe we can make this happen.
Thank you for all
Thank
you
you,
do, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie.
Just, if you don't mind, Mr. President, would add, just to make the commission aware, that last month, February, we did take a board action and present it to the board, because we had not heard from the county as far as interest goes, relative to moving this forward. And the board agreed to that recommendation. And that was that staff move forward with getting the permit and constructing the low hazard impoundment, which is where the dollar amount came from associated with this interlocal agreement. And then to sell all the other acreage that's there. That was the direction that the board gave staff last month. So we will be revisiting this once we receive the interlocal agreement on this. We'll be revisiting it with board to go forward. But To support Mr. Charles, there have been a number of offerings over the years, and our board is ready. I know Commissioner Witt is aware that our board is
Yes.
ready to resolve this and move on.
Thank you.
I'm taking the responsibility at the board meeting that I asked staff to stop moving forward with what the board had agreed to do because there was interest shown. And so I will take that responsibility at the meeting and changes made and everything else. But we'll present it and we'll fight for Columbia County.
We'll be there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all.
Mr. Kirby?
I think Joel has it.
Well, I was going to say good morning, but I'll say good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I have 3 items for your consideration. Before I get started on this mowing maintenance contract, I feel obligated to do a little history lesson that probably only Commissioner Williams can attest to, but way back in the day, we had rural mowing, and we had 3 inmate crews. And basically, your rural mowing had their route, your inmate crews had their route. It's important that I remember route. I'll relate to it as a mail carrier, if you may. A decade plus ago, we become a little more urbanized. We then added an urban mowing crew to the agenda. So then you add the urban mowing crew route, 3 additional routes per inmate crew, and your rural mowing route. So you had 5 operations. COVID came, we lose 3 of the 5 operations. We went to contract to cover those 3 routes. It was a debacle, for lack of a better word. The contract started 6 weeks late, for whatever reason. We had a very strange, wet summer. And in my personal opinion, the performance of the contractor had a lot to be, it lacked. So before I get started with that, I just want to clear up how we got here. Once Clint and I got together, said, how can we make this better? It was a test project. Let's take those 3 routes that we put under one contractor. Let's divide those to 3 separate contracts. In theory, that will make it better. That's what we've done here today. That being said, this was a single bid project, was awarded to one contractor on the 6th of May. We're supposed to start mowing April 1. With the current mowing cycle beginning on April 1, provide a scope of work changes to the last year's specs in preparation for the bid cycle. Split into 3 categories. After advertising, a mandatory pre-bid was held. Bid categories are as follows. Ponds, open areas, 164 acres, sidewalks and guardrails, 41 acres, urban mowing, 245 acres. We received 5 contractors. 1 bid was incomplete and was thrown out. So that's how the competitive bid process works. We had to throw it out, errors and omission. We did participate in review of all qualified bids. Here are your bids. The first, Arrow, had some errors, that was thrown out. Boone Improvement did all 3 categories. Creative Concept, 1 category. Creative Design Management, 2 categories. Green Maintenance, which was your current or your contract from last year, at 2 categories. Note the bid prices are shown per cycle, total of 8 for all areas at $331, $959, $44. Prior to me making the recommended motion, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Williams, I think you connected with me on this. Mowing grass in this county has always been dramatic for whatever reason. I've heard a lot of conversation about this particular contract. I'm obligated to say the competitive bid process happened. It was followed thoroughly. It was reviewed thoroughly. Anything absent of accepting this motion, in my humble opinion, will at minimum open you up to a bid protest, potentially up to litigation. Therefore, I'm requesting to approve bid and contract 2022L, green maintenance and cleaning in the amount of $9,944. 2022M, green maintenance and cleaning in the amount of $14,477. And 2022N, Boone improvements in the amount of $17,103.93.
Kevin, if you would expand on what you're saying about possible litigation, what have you?
I have had multiple phone calls asking me, were we satisfied with the performance of green maintenance as it relates to last year's contract? My answer is no, we were not satisfied. There were several other contributing factors to not being satisfied other than the performance of the contractor. My humble opinion is basically he had so much going on there, he was lost. We started 6 weeks late and it rained unbelievable. Besides Debbie, wettest summer I can remember. Many folks, constituents, some commissioners have reached out to me. Why in the world would you recommend something that didn't work? Well, that's why we divided it in 3 separate contracts, right? I guess if hindsight's always 2020, Mike and I, Mr. Nolan and I talked about it. Hindsight always is 2020. We could have wrote an excerpt in there that we only want one contractor per discipline.
I was fixing to ask you
But
that.
we didn't do that. Okay, we did not do that. The thought process was to ensure to divide it into 3 categories, and we did that. To answer your question, Mr. Murphy, we followed the process. If that was a mistake, it was a mistake. But that's the way we put it out. We did it, but this was not an RFQ. It was not an RFP. It was a competitive bid process. The boxes have been checked. Now, I don't remember who else was on the board. I know Commissioner Williams was. We had a rural mowing contract at one time that failed. We terminated that contract. We had a consultant on Baskin Norris Road one time that failed. We terminated that contract. We did not terminate green maintenance last year. We just didn't. Maybe we should have, but we didn't.
So Joel, what's your legal on this?
I've discussed this issue with a couple of commissioners during the week, and as I indicated in those conversations, you had a price-based bid arrangement here, okay? The only way this board would be able to carve out the ability to reject the lowest bids is if you had some basis to determine that these were in fact non-responsive. And so it really, that's going to be your evidence in any litigation that we might confront, right? So why did you determine we were non-responsive? Well, number one, you have to articulate your reasons. And number two, those reasons are going to have to hold up in court. So that's where you can run into a situation where they say, well, you acted arbitrarily and capriciously, which is the standard on administrative review. You know, you just randomly decided not to hire us, even though we had the lowest bid. You have to overcome that because there'll be a little bit of a presumption when we've gone out on a price-based bid that we didn't choose the lowest bidder. So you need a fairly compelling reason to get past this, particularly in light of the fact, as Mr. Kirby indicated, you did have a committee that reviewed them for responsiveness. You know, if this was something where just one individual had looked at it and said, well, that's the low number here, look at it. Mr. Kirby's telling you that there was a committee that did look at it and did evaluate for responsiveness and has now brought this recommendation to you. So for the board to overcome that, you're going to need to make a showing here.
All right, but Chair,
Go ahead, Ms. Williams.
I don't like it. It might not be anything I can do about it, but I don't like it a darn all. From what I went through, and I guess all the rest of you commissioners last year, I do know this, that I expect for the work to be done on time and be quality work, and it wasn't done that way last year. I had grass, I'm telling you all, on Falcon North that damn high.
That's right.
3.5 foot tall. And they come in there with a push lawnmower trying to cut the dang thing. A push lawnmower.
Yep.
And then it looked worse after they cut it than it did with it being 3.5 foot tall. And that's all I got. My Falling Creek area, it was cut 2 times. Just twice last year. His bush is still side the road.
Yep.
I'm just thankful we got this hard freeze, at least it killed him.
That's right.
So Kirby, I'm expecting for y'all we don't go through it with the last year.
Agreed, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I have concerns too, and this urban mowing doesn't really impact my district, but I've listened to Mr. Williams' concerns all last year. I have concerns that we had the one contractor that had all 3 of these and couldn't complete it last year, and now we're giving him 2 out of 3. And I agree, maybe we should have, in hindsight, said we only want 1 contractor on each bid, because I do believe that was the intent of splitting this up. And on one bid, he is significantly lower, and I'm wondering if he's undercutting himself and if he's going to be able to perform. The other one, he's only less than $1,000 from the second bidder. I just have concerns. He's going to be able to. My concerns are based on past performance. Can past performance not be brought into this? I mean,
Sounds like unless he's terminated, no.
But I concur with exactly what Mr. Witt and Mr. Williams said, because what Ron went through in 2 different sections of his district, I know, and what everybody, that ain't right. There's no excuse for that whatsoever. So my question to Kevin is, what protection do you have in mind as of today, how we're gonna get through this next round? Are we going to get a report every single meeting during the cutting season, or at least every other meeting, that these people are holding up the par? And and I guess it'd be a dual question to Kevin and Mike Knoll, in the contract, do we have the grounds that if they don't perform up to snuff on this cycle, can we fire them on the spot and not have any, worried about this, worried about that?
Just as we did with the rural mowing contractor several years ago, exactly the same deal. He did not perform, we terminated him. My personal opinion, this will not work. I want to make myself clear. I do not think it will work based on last year's performance. I said that to say this. Joe, Mr. Foreman, he's an attorney. If you don't go through the process, I believe you have a different problem.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, our eyes are wide open going into this, that unless something significantly changes with this contractor from last year to this year, take away the 6-week late start, take away the wet weather, take all that away, unless he has done something. Clint, correct me if I'm wrong, we had 2 significant meetings with him last year, just long battle meetings. It's not like we sat back and said everything's okay. Lengthy, for lack of a better word, old-fashioned cuss outs. So I don't know that it will work, but I'm saying I'm obligated to say, Mike and I were on the phone last night at 8 o'clock. Boxes have been checked. It's a competitive. I recall one time a county was very upset with a road contractor because they did a bad job. And the administrator at that time said, if it was up to me, the contractor would never perform another job in this county. But he never got at a podium and said, don't award them low bid.
Mr. Kirby, I want to ask you something. How far behind or how far up on this are you? If he's behind a half a mile or does he have is there a performance where he's got to do certain things every week? So it's set out.
Days. Yes, sir.
So what we're going to do, if
Cycles.
he's a day behind, unless a tragic accident happened, are we going to stay on top of it?
Here's what I'll commit to with your approval. At every single board meeting, as the mowing season starts, I will provide this board an update on where we're at on this contract. That's every 2 weeks, right? So I would logically assume if I come in here and say, well, we're 2 days behind, we'll talk about that. If we come in the next 2 weeks and say, well, we're 9 days behind, I would logically assume we're going to make a move on that, right? That's how it worked last time with the rural mowing contractor when he was terminated.
Even with, let me ask you one more question. I'm sorry, Mr. Ford. Even with a good contractor, I'm sure you had good ones. Are there times they get 2 or 3 days behind and then they catch up?
Sure.
So
Every
there's a
job.
point where he ain't catching up.
Right.
Okay.
There's some common sense.
And that'll be
in
your
there. Right.
opinion. That's why at the meeting, I will ask you, is he going to do this
We-
job?
we
And you'll
manage-
say no.
We manage contracts every day. I call it time and money, time versus money. Sometimes they get a little behind, then they get a little ahead, somewhere in the middle. But we understand, and the contractor, we've had conversation with him. Are you prepared to do this? He ensures us he is. I've said my piece. If this board says we're not going forward, I've just done my job here. That's all.
And guys, the main roadside mowing contractor has been great until last year. Then he started slacking because I got all this DOT work. And so I kind of put the county on the back burner.
And he's right back there again, taking on more work on this contract.
Yeah.
Ron. Yeah. I'm with you. So unless he hired a lot more people than what everybody else in the world's able to hire right now. So he must be paying $40-50 an hour. I don't know. But it's Ford.
I agree with the guys here. I mean, with other commissioners, you know, we have got to watch this close. If we see him getting behind, I mean, I wish there was a way we could split this up. We should have, I guess, look, hindsight's always 20/20. I know. We probably should have made it where you can only bid on one part of the contract, each mowing contractor. My biggest issue last year is when they don't mow the road, garbage don't get picked up on the side of the roads. I have a lot of people in my district complaining about the roadside cleanup, which I know that's a problem. People throwing trash out. I have a problem with that too. But when you don't get the mowing cycle done, you don't get the trash pickup done either. So, you know, I have more complaints about the trash on the side of the road than I do the mowing, to be honest with you.
And Kevin, to speak on what Mr. Ford is talking about, the grass gets so high, and then they don't do a good job of wading through the grass, picking up the trash. And then once they come in and mow it, they just spread trash everywhere. Is there a clause in there that this has to be cleaned up? You said yes?
Yes, sir. Those contractors are sent back on a regular basis to go back. I've even made them hand raise when they make the CD out of something. They go back and have to redo those areas. Many times I make them recover. So it's not just going back and picking up trash they found, though. They also have to redo that area. That is in there. They do have to do that.
Good.
But
So-
if I may, I agree with y'all 100%. Last year was the first trial right out of the box. We did this in the 11th hour.
Right.
To put something together and get somebody on the grass. Due to other circumstances, the staff and purchasing, we didn't get out there. That's what we're talking about. These 3 separate areas we have now, last year the contractor was talking on top of that list that we gave him, and we're trying to go down these areas. We saw right off the bat that was logistically impossible. Busting in 3 sections like this, he's got to do those 2 sections simultaneously. So he's gonna have to have Christmas trees because the guardrails all have to be started at the same time as contention bonds. Well, last year he's trying to go down the list of top to bottom. So there's a whole lot more avenues in here for me to correct him, to penalize him after his daytime, and to fire him if he doesn't complete that.
And to echo what Clint said, I recall last year, it got so complicated. We literally assigned Clint and 2 other people to try to manage this contract. That's how crazy it went. I just want this board to know, as each of you get the complaints per district, I get them from all 5. So if anybody understands this, I do.
I think we all understand it. Mr. Kirby, next year, do you think you'll make it one contractor per?
I think we're gonna know in the immediate future just
What
how
we
bad
need to
we
do.
messed up one way or another.
Yeah. All right. Is there a motion on this?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
All right.
All opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At the last meeting, I was requested to bring an update as it relates to Class 3 and the roll-off business once we went to open market. Before I get started this presentation, at budget time, you will hear a lot of talk once again about Class 1 and Class 3 at your solid waste facility because it is a moving target at best. So back in December of 19, I presented with a vertical expansion. You had 571,000 cubic yards of airspace remaining, giving you 10 more years of life at Class 3 based on a 43 annual cubic yard intake. After that, in 2020, we had 62,000 cubic yards. In 21, 70,800 cubic yards, a significantly different number. We'll talk about that in a minute. I basically prorated that increase out. So now in lieu of 2930 having to rebuild, we're going to be closer to 2027 to rebuild. So what happened? We all thought that most of our construction debris was going to other locations. We validated that. We went from 43,200 cubic yards to 71,400 annually, therefore shortening by 2 years. So now we have about 5.5 years instead of 7 years. With the estimated volume increase, we will need to build in 26, 27 at the rate we're going. Back in 19, I told you it was a $4.655 million cost or $581,000 annual. That gives you 17 acres or 2.3 million cubic yards of capacity with a 56-year lifespan. That's what I presented. I captured this off the PowerPoint in 19. At the end of the day, where does your revenue come from? Charge, franchise haulers, cash customers. You're averaging 833 as we speak. So if we go on loan like we're going right now, you got a $7.6 million cost. You got a $3.4 million deficit as we speak today for construction of Class 3. Here's an option to overcome that. Instead of your 17-acre site, you can build 10 acres, 4.5 million. That escrows out to 900,000 annually. You go from your 28-year capacity to your 17-year capacity. That's going to be some options during the budget time. New Class 3 construction cost at 4.5, Class 3 revenues at 4.166 gives you a $350,000 deficit if you go with Plan B versus Plan A. So in summary, new Class 3 at 17 acres, 2.3 million cubic yards, $7.6 million price tag, 10 acres, and a $4.5 million price tag. So to capture everything we're doing right there, though we shouldn't be, we had to be competitive with Swanee County. They were at $4 a cubic yard. We were at $37 a ton. At that time, I was of the opinion that if we didn't go to volumetric versus tonnage, we simply were not competing. I was right because we almost doubled our intake and it increased our revenues. However, it's eating up our airspace. So is it a good business deal? It's hard to say. You're bringing in more money. It's got a big price tag. You're filling up the landfill way faster than I ever anticipated. With that, Mr. Chairman, that's your Class 3 update as it relates to roll-off containers.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
here is what we need to do, guys. We have always had the landfill cover the cost of opening a new cell and closing the old cell. We need to adjust our tipping fee in order to, when we get ready to build that new cell, that we have the money to do it with and close the old cell. It got to be adjusted. We don't need to put other money into the landfill. It needs to support itself like it have done in the past. Yeah, I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Go ahead, Mr. Kirby.
Commissioner Williams, I completely agree, but the history says when we were at $37 a ton, I find it hard to believe we're that much busier immediately. We almost doubled in cubic yards / tonnage when we adjusted. So we went 1/4 above what our neighbors were charging, right? $4.25. And theoretically, the transportation costs were even though they're not according to Mr. Foreman's, our flow ordinance, maybe. They're not supposed to be doing that anyway, but we knew they were. Now, if we adjust the tippage, even though they're not supposed to, I believe your revenues will go down immediately. And I'm echoing what you're saying, because as those numbers indicate, you even going to 10 acres versus 17 acres at the rate we're going will still be $350,000 shy of construction. Now, why is that? And they keep changing. Class 3 in-house personnel went and dug a hole with a backhoe and pushed C&D material in it. That was what happened. Now you got liners, EHA collection, et cetera, et cetera. I've been told that the lifespan next door is about 2 years. At that point, they're going to be faced with the same problems we are. So I'm of the opinion at some time frame, all of the cost as it relates to containers and debris will have to be passed on to the customer, so forth and so on, because everybody is going to have to adjust their rates to accommodate this need. We're in a transitional period.
But Kirby, I kind of disagree.
Okay.
That we won't get as much garbage. If we enforce our flow control, we'll get the same amount of garbage.
Correct.
So you're saying if we raise our tip fee, they're gonna start taking the garbage somewhere else. That's BS. We need to enforce our flow control, just like we're doing now.
Agreed.
And then we have the money to pay for a new sale and close old sale.
Yes, sir.
It's not fair to take ad valorem tax money or sale tax money to open a landfill and close a landfill. It should generate those funds itself in order to run that enterprise.
Agreed. I'm just saying the basic logistics of it based on the history. In 1 year, you jumped up by thousands.
Mr. Kirby, remind me, what is the amount that goes in reserve every year for the landfill? What's the amount after expense that we're able to put away for the landfill every year?
Yeah, yes, sir. That's the math I'm giving. I don't recall that exact number, but that I incorporated that when I come up with those numbers.
Ballpark?
Commissioner Witt, I don't know off the top of my head. I saw it yesterday. I just don't know. Those numbers reflect all that.
So is that a depreciation of reserves that we're setting aside every year, Kevin?
Yes, sir.
So we're at a zero balance in reserve at that point?
Yeah, in theory, we're never at a zero balance. Okay. The biggest challenge we have, if I showed you this, when I presented this in 19, you had because they keep changing on us. So in 19, I told you it was a $4.655 million to construct 17 acres, right? Based on DEP requirements and just the world we're living in today, that number now is 7.6 million. Okay. That's the challenges, but the numbers, when I put this together yesterday, the deficits I'm referring to are encompassing your reserves at when I did this yesterday. I just didn't put that down.
I guess where I'm getting to is the landfill needs to be a self-sufficient enterprise, but if you've got revenue coming in every year, who's to say the landfill couldn't take out a loan and pay that loan back with the revenue it's got coming in and go ahead and do this?
Commissioner, we have always run the landfill as a separate enterprise, as Commissioner Williams echoed. And we take operational expense and what's left over, we escrow it to do future expansion, et cetera, et cetera.
I get that.
Yeah,
But
but here's why we never took a loan out for the landfill. When we first initiated this tipping fee, not tipping fee, assessment for the garbage, we had a public hearing. And when we had on the screen had the amount it would take to do the landfill and close the landfill and how much money we would have to borrow over 20 years, everybody looked at the interest we would be paying and said, no, we rather increase the tipping fee so we don't have to pay interest or borrow money.
But one of the problems I think we're overlooking is the requirements they make you do now to open a new.
Right.
Yeah. So what?
The only requirement different now is a class 3 has to have a liner in it. That's the only difference.
But that's more money.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Whenever that was done at that
The
time.
only difference going forward with class 1 and class 3 is class 1 has 2 liners, class 3 has 1 liner. Everything, LEHA collection, everything is now treated equivalent to class 1 with the exception of the additional liner.
I get that, but we pile money every year in order to upgrade the landfill. When you do this new expansion, you've got years before you have to do anything else. You could pay back the loan.
The theory is you always escrow your money in pre-existing conditions to be ready for expansion.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Witt, if you take the
Yes, sir.
money you
Mr. Kraft.
escrow to pay the loan off, you putting yourself deeper in having to borrow more money when you taking the money that you escrow and paying the loan off and not escrowing enough to open or close another sale. So that means you got to borrow more money every time.
Mr. Kraus.
I think Commissioner Williams just said what I was going to say, which is if you change your business model and go to one where you're borrowing money and have debt service, then you're not putting future escrow away into future expansions. You're changing your business model.
Mr. Chair, I was asked to give an update. Obviously, we're working very hard at this at budget time. I think we're going to have a lot of options to explore. But Commissioner Williams, you asked me to bring an update, and long story is we're doing a lot more volume, but based on volumetrics versus tonnage, though our revenues are in, the bottom line is we increased revenues by $120,000 in 1 year. But if we would have stayed tonnage, it would have been 200,000. Am I making sense? So though we give the customers a flat rate to be competitive with Swanee County, though our revenues went up, our volumes went up, our profit margin, if you may, went down.
And we're talking C and D only, correct, Kevin?
Class 3, which is seeing everything other than household garbage.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay? Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank y'all. All right, this one's easy. Lake Montgomery Pier.
Whoa, let's do my bird flu while we're right here.
Okay. So David asked.
I got with my cattleman man. Last time that we had a bird flu epidemic, we through DEP, we authorized DEP authorized us to be able to dispose of birds if we had a bird flu epidemic in Columbia County. And what the board done at that time was that we agreed to follow DEP recommendation, but we will only take birds from Columbia County. And that makes sense. If we don't have an epidemic here and we are taking birds from Swanee County that have a bad outbreak, then that gives the possibility of that transferring to Calmaine, therefore right down from the landfill. So David have Kevin have the authorization from DEP authorizing the county to be able to bury birds at the landfill in case we have an outbreak at Calmaine.
It's to expand on that, Commissioner Williams. David reached out to me earlier in the week when you brought this to his attention. I looked back in the record in 2015. We almost experienced a bird flu outbreak, which time I went to DEP. We got all the stuff right. We dug the hole. We were prepared to take it. I come in front of the board at that time, and we went from $80 special disposal fee. We determined at that time we needed $100 per ton. I went and revalidated with DEP and all the regulatory agencies. They came out, looked at our site. We're still up to snuff on everything. So you currently have a standing policy to take the birds in the event we need to at $100 per ton. And we are prepared to do that. I validated we are still prepared to do that.
We thank you for that.
Sure.
That's a load off our minds. So thank y'all.
Yes, sir. We're ready. Okay. Okay, my final item is Lake Montgomery Pier Budget Amendment 2237. So Wildlife Commission's pledged 50%, estimated cost at $300,000. Of course, a few weeks ago, they're trying to raise private and public funds. They're requesting the county to contribute. This budget amendment would set aside up to $75,000. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, recommended motion BA 2237, Lake Montgomery Pier, in the amount of $75,000.
So move, Mr. Chairman. Where, David, will that come from?
The 75,000 is one half of the 150. All right, if the total project's 300, they've got 150, that leaves 150. Splitting the 150 between the city and county would be 75 apiece.
David, I know there was some talk at TDC to provide some of this money out of TDC funds.
Right, this is just setting aside the money. If they raise greater number of donations, which they are going to go out and seek private donations and community group donations. If the TDC wishes to contribute, we would not spend the full 75. It's just setting it aside in case that's what the board chooses to do.
Okay.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, David, time to rock and roll.
All right, we'll go very, very fast. Don's giving me a dirty look. All right, the next two items are going to go real fast. The homeowners and the property owners, Mr. Jordan and Bonnie Green, would like to name their road Evergreen Ponds Court, Northwest Evergreen Ponds Court.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
The owners of this potential subdivision, BKL Danoon Inc., they're a single owner. They would like to name this Southwest Gilliard Glen.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Swanee River Economic Council says, although you got rotated off the board last time, we need to appoint somebody to the Swanee River Economic Council. It can be a commissioner or an elected official or your representative. So you can table this while you think of who you want to put on the board, or if you have somebody you'd like to nominate, we can put somebody on the board.
Can it be a commissioner?
It can be an elected official, which is a commissioner, or it can be your representative.
I'll serve, Mr. Chair.
I'll feel that, or I can too, it don't matter.
Okay, y'all flip a quarter.
If Ron's good with it, go ahead.
Okay, I guess Ron.
I'll make a motion. We appoint Commissioner Williams to the Swanee River
Second.
Economic Council.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
So the North Central Florida Trauma Agency, which is a group of all kinds of medical people and facilities and everything else that work to improve the quality of trauma care in the region, want a new or needs a representative. Chief Crawford has been doing this for a long time for us. I'm asking that you reappoint Chief Crawford to this. agency.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Next one is vehicle replacement. We have two 2007 Chevy Impalas. One of them has been in the shop several times for the same repair. We're asking that you replace this. We put the new vehicle in the EOC and move the EOC's vehicle. It would either be the one replaced or it would be moved to where the one that is being replaced is.
Move to approve BA 22-32.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Request to set budget workshop. We can actually change the hour if you wish. You can set it so that it occurs immediately after your budget or your regular meeting that day. That way you don't have to be here all day. But we would like to do a budget workshop on April 7th to bring in an outside expert on health insurance to talk to you through the whole re-upping of the health insurance.
I'll make the most, I'll move we second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion
I'm
passes.
gonna have to look back
quick
and record
question.
what you just said.
Quick question, is that to set it at 1:30 or did you want to set it like at 11 so it occurs immediately after your session?
I would, me personally, would rather just run them together immediately after.
Yeah.
So could you
Close
make
as
a
you
motion
can.
stating that? Wait, go ahead. Tom.
I was just going to remind the board, they can set it as early as possible. You can always start a meeting late, can't start it early. So set it for like 10:30.
So we need a motion to set it at 10:30.
We need a motion?
I move we set the time at 10:30.
What time?
10:30.
We're just making it early.
We
might
can
not-
always start it late. We can't start
We
it.
can always start it late. Motion, we got a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
I'll give you a real quick update on economic development, and we can go into more detail next time if you want. Basically, we're in the process of reviewing the job description for the economic development specialist with HR. That would be the upgrade of the existing person. Currently, we're advertising to fill the economic development director position. We are in the process of selecting the firm. This was brought up the other day at the utility committee meeting. Selecting a firm to do the gas feasibility study. It's in procurement right now. We're working on grants for rail, road, and stormwater projects in the North Florida Mega Industrial Park. We're also seeking direct federal funding of the Bell Road extension and the water wastewater projects at the North Florida Mega Industrial Park, and also water and wastewater projects in South Columbia. This includes potential earmarks, which is going to the federal government and saying, please put this in the federal budget specifically for our project. They started doing earmarks 2 years ago, so we're going to take advantage of, or last year was the first year they had earmarks again, so we're going to try and take advantage of that to get funding for Bell Road and other projects. And then finally, we're working on rail and recharge consultants, very closely with the rail consultant and also with the recharge consultant that the board picked. They'll be coming to you in the near future. Finally, we would like to do a 90-day pilot program. There's been discussions around here for a long time about what if we just contract out some of the economic development efforts. So we would like to do a 90-day pilot project to contract out the economic development services that would support our existing staff, especially since we're transitioning and we're still looking for a new economic development director.
Means we would appoint a private economic development company, what I'm hearing, and
So
during the 90-day period that we, to cover economic development. Yes, we could or couldn't.
that'd be up to the board.
No,
We
we
don't have
vote.
to. It does not require action.
It's not an action. Yeah.
Not an action
According to the
thing.
agenda, it says that it's for no action
Discussion only,
required.
yes. This is
Says
just to
update
give
on
you an
economic
update on the
development, no
direction
action.
we're headed.
They're just saying that's the direction they're headed.
So if that's
We're going to be right here. You'll hear all about it. Yep.
So finally, not finally, but this is an important one. We want to do a summer camp in Fort White. The Antioch Missionary Baptist Church is participating with us, along with the community, the town of Fort White, Columbia County School Districts, Florida Crown Career Source, to provide the summer camp, which would begin for 6 weeks in the middle of June. What they're asking for the county is to provide the PILT money, which was reviewed by the clerk, and the clerk said, yes, we can use the PILT money for these purposes. For the first year, because the community won't be able to create a 501c3 fast enough, we would provide those funds to the town of Fort White to handle the day-to-day administration of it. Eventually, we want to work towards eventually having a Fort White 501c3 operate the summer camp, much as we do the summer camp at Richardson. Of course, the recreation department will be involved. The school district is going to provide for transportation and summer instruction. So they will get tutoring and mentoring from people who are teachers. Florida Crown's going to use additional staffing assistance through their summer youth program. And what they're asking for is $27,270, of which they want $20,000 in PILT funds. The rest of the funds would come from camp registration fees, local fundraising. These could also be used for additional activities as combined. And would be run just very similar to the one we do in Richardson.
Mr. Chair, I've been working with Commissioner Ford through a committee. So it's been public meetings. We was in one last Thursday on a week ago. A great opportunity for Fort White, the southern end of the county. I'm still very impressed with Nicole. She's the one that runs the summer program for Richardson. She used to work for Richardson, and she got a degree in teaching, so she teaches now. But she worked the summer program during the summer. Great organization. They're putting together for Fort White. Florida Crown is also involved in the program by providing young people to be teachers and all, and they'll pay them to do that. Fort White is real elated about the possibility of having a summer program. As he said, the city council is behind it. The school system will do the same for Fort White as they do for Richardson summer program. So it's a win-win situation. And it would be the same identical way it is at Richardson. They'll pay $300 for registration for the fee to get in. That comes about $12.50 a day, and you can't go to a daycare anywhere else and for $12.50 to keep the kids there. And
You know, we're gonna do all we can do for y'all's hometown down there.
Yeah, this is, I say a lot of people came together to make this happen, including the town of Fort White, and Antioch Baptist Church, Florida Crown Workforce, Richardson Community Center. A lot of people come together to make this happen, and I would appreciate the support, and I'll make a motion that we approve this money for the
Second.
Fort White Summer Camp.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
So next one is a memorandum of understanding for IT maintenance. Link, raise your hand. We'd like to welcome Link back to the employment of Columbia County Board of County Commissioners. Having said that, when he came over to us, it left a situation where the clerk of courts needed some IT support. So rather than trying to replace that position, he decided he would rather contract with us to provide his IT support. So he would pay us $30,000 a year annually, and he'll continue to have his separate IT system, but we will support it and maintain it.
I move to approve the memorandum of understanding for IT maintenance with the clerk of courts.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
So you'll be seeing more of Link as he's going to rotate with David on your meetings, and he does a great job.
Mr. Ford, I figured we'd start out with the seniors assistants.
Yeah, okay. Well, what I want to ask y'all to do is, we have the program for the helping the seniors out on their houses. I would like to change the requirements of who qualifies to the same thing as what the CDBG does, so we can include veterans and handicapped people. Would that be something y'all would? So I'll make a motion at this time that we change that requirement to meet the same requirements that the CDBG grants do, and include handicapped and veterans into this program.
I'll second.
Well, how did we eliminate them on the guidelines? We just drink it.
Oversight.
When we established the program, we were just thinking about low-income senior citizens. When we got into the housing program with the CDBG grant that we have, our consultant, who is no longer here, Corbett, and Antonio, who works for Corbett, said, well, with the CDBG grant, we do the disabled, we do veterans, and those types of things. And it's just easier if we mirror what they do, because we're using them to help administer our grant as well.
We have a motion and a second.
And they should have been included from the start. It was just an oversight.
But what I'm saying is, they still, if you was a veteran and met the guideline, you still could have applied.
Well, you had to be 65 or over.
So this would allow, say, somebody who is disabled, who is under 65, or under 62, or whatever age, under 60, they could still apply if they're disabled to the point where, they have to.
So with veterans and disabled, that eliminate the age.
Right.
Okay, great.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next one is broadband. Mr. Witt.
I'll be real quick. The broadband committee has had 2 meetings now. Our first task is an accurate assessment of the true need out there, what people actually have, where broadband is and isn't. We want to accomplish that. Number one, through the National Association of Counties tested app, we're going to have to promote. We also have a county survey that Patrick put together. It's going to be more inducive to our specific needs and questions. The 3-question survey that we want to roll out. Why it's on the agenda tonight is we're going to need some funding at some point. And I would like to request that we do have ARPA funds. ARPA funds were set aside for infrastructure. I would like to request that $20,000 be put into a budget for the broadband committee, because we know we're going to have advertising needs and pushing this survey out. And until we get an accurate picture of the county.
Second.
Good deal.
We have a motion and a second, and I will say something before we vote. I have as many calls on that as I do roads.
I do too. Me
People are
too, in my
interested.
area, rural areas.
And I tell them to call Toby Witt. So
Thanks.
you need your advertising because people don't know what's happening. They're like, whoa. So we really need to.
Unfortunately, you can't get an accurate picture from the actual people who provide the service. They're not going to disclose
Right.
what they have and what they don't.
Yeah.
The only way to do it is go directly to the people, and that's going to take a little bit of funds. So $20,000 should get us started.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. All right, the parking lot.
Parking lot, okay. As previously, the county expressed interest in acquiring the grassy land next to the First Baptist Church for county parking at the annex. We also talked about purchasing that building that's next to the annex that the church owns. We never could reach an agreement with the church, and so we stopped pursuing it. The church has reached out to us. They're in the process of deciding whether they want to start reconsidering options again. And so I need to know if the board is interested in pursuing either acquiring the grassy lot for parking or the grassy lot and the two-story building.
I know that lot was full Monday.
Full.
Jury trial.
David, let me ask you a question. Should we proceed with this before we find out what we're going to do with the lake, if we're going to be able to move into the lake shore building? But once, you know what, if we move buildings and the zoning, the permitting down there with the environmental health and all, that's going to eliminate a lot of parking issues that we have at the annex, because we have parking lot down there.
The issue you will have is if we move everybody out of the basement to the new building, we're going to take the people that are in court administration and move them into the basement. So you'll still have
You're gonna have
the
that.
same type of number of employees, as long as you have the tax collector and the property appraiser in that building, you're always going to have, and court, you're always going to have parking problems.
So I'm okay with pursuing, make them an offer, I guess I would say. We
Well,
definitely need
they
parking.
talked about it last Sunday. They didn't make a decision to offer it yet. They're going to talk about it again this Sunday. But if they decide to pursue offering it up again, that's what I'll do.
Bring it to us like they did last time. I mean, I don't have no problem with
Yeah,
that.
I mean, we can negotiate with them on it.
So we don't need a motion, we're just going to negotiate.
If you give me the direction that you're still interested in pursuing it, we'll
That's
pursue
your
it.
direction. You got it.
Okay.
All right, public comment.
Any public comments to the board? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mentioned this before. This broadband committee, this was supposed to be put on the county calendar. It's very important. I heard Mr. Witt say it's very important. Everybody thinks it's very important. The only way the public could participate and know how important it is to have the opportunity to attend. In order to attend, they need to know when it is. So I'm asking that meeting be put on the county calendar so people know. Would that be a problem, Mr. Crown?
That would not be a problem.
Thank you.
Was it not on the calendar the last meeting, not on the calendar? I thought
It was intended to be on the calendar. I think it was an oversight and it did not get to.
Was not there. I mean, I looked because I'm trying to keep track of it. The second thing is I brought up at the utility committee meeting yesterday. As far as I've been here in Columbia County, which is 2006, I guess, that I started coming to meetings. I don't see any master plan for utilities. I don't see any master plan for the county. I don't see any strategic plan for the county. I don't see much in planning. Anybody who looks around and sees what's going on in Lake City right now knows what happens when you don't have a plan, particularly utilities, which is just a mess. The city is a mess. They can't even figure out how to hire a city manager. So do you guys, a few years ago, I don't know, what was it, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, the county put out for bid to make a strategic plan or a long-range plan for Columbia County. And that never happened. Indeed, you had a second hearing after it was decided inside the county that you weren't going to even have a strategic plan. So do you guys have any plans to make a strategic plan? That's just my question. Maybe we could get some kind of answer. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Jones Edmonds has been paid for that plan, and she gave us an update here several weeks ago, correct? And it must have been one of the meetings you must have skipped on us or something or other.
Right.
But it's due any day, the 5-year strategic utilities plan.
What about a strategic plan for the county, though?
That was 2 parts. I got to 1 part.
Okay, what about the other part?
I
didn't skip out on that one.
Yeah, I'll skip out on that one.
Okay, thank you very much.
I can only help you half time, Stu. Come on.
Do we have any staff comments?
No, sir.
Any commissioner comments? Motion to adjourn.
So moved. It's about supper time, ain't it?
Yeah, I got a meeting at 2, so we gotta hurry.
Mr. Todd? Is Ellen picking up the box? Okay, yeah, if you were linked, take it. Yeah.
I'll make sure you're included. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
They bring in their programs to help too.
Yeah.
You used to work.
You got the plan to also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay. And,
Okay, yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah. I'll get her to come back out. Yeah. 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 All right.
all right, going to Kenya?
Yeah.
I'll see you there.